What? Jack is Robin Williams.
There we go. I'll take it.
There we go. You're Sean McGuire.
You're Sean.
I'll be Sean.
You mathematical prick.
It's not your fault.
Yes, you'll say that to Cynthia. All right, and I'll just sit here and go, retainer. 913-912-4810 is the text line. Mark off Goodwill Hunting.
Never seen the movie.
Comparisons there. All right, so...
was it a book or?
So the next 2 hours, we're just going to watch Goodwill Hunting together, everybody. All right, Dylan, go ahead and download that thing and just press play, and we'll get this thing going, and we'll all watch it together. It'll be like Mystery Science 3000.
Is his first name Good?
Yes, Goodwill.
Okay.
Goodwill.
That makes more
sense. And then, middle name is Will. Sometimes he goes by Will, but oftentimes it's Goodwill. He actually invented Goodwill. 913-912-4810. Let's get into the show. Well, I should also let you know Chiefs press conference is coming up today. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. We'll see what players will be at the podium today as well. Mick Schaefer will be with us in the 1 o'clock hour, KSHB 41 sports director. Coming up tonight, Hawk Talk with Lance Leipold. They get ready for a big matchup with Colorado. And that's at Arrowhead, and an opportunity. They have put themselves in a position to go to a bowl game, win 2 more games. I mean, tough task of having to win 4 straight and 3 of those against top 25 teams, one of those being on the road. And now you get a home date at Arrowhead against Colorado that has a lot to play for, too. I mean, they've got a chance to make the college football playoff. Colorado is 3 wins away from being in the college football playoff as the winner of the Big 12, winning the next 2 weeks and then the Big 12 championship game, which they absolutely can against BYU. We've seen some kinks in the armor of BYU the last couple of weeks. So Colorado with tons to play for, Kansas with tons to play for. This is not one of those games to where it's setting up like, you got a 4-6 team against an 8-2 team. One team's playing for a chance to make the college football playoff. The other team's sort of playing out the string. That is not this matchup this weekend, and that line has moved towards KU. We mentioned it yesterday with Braden Gall. It opened up at 3. Now it's at 2.5 for KU being the underdog. So that's going to be a fun one. But Lance Leipold comes up at 6 o'clock. Hawk Talk with Lance Leipold. Also, Deion Sanders had really glowing things to say about Lance Leipold. And I didn't realize some of the when coaches are candid about some other coaches, they typically don't do it when it's in the negative aspect. But when it's in the positive aspect, sometimes you'll feel like they're just giving lip service. That seemed to be genuine from Deion in saying, when I got here in the conference, this year and first year in the Big 12, some coaches reached out, but Lance Leipold reached out and he's kept reaching out. And we've talked every couple of weeks. He's like, great dude, got a great team, and I really appreciate him, as a friend and a fellow coach that, coaches in the Big 12 could have looked at Deion and like, bleep that guy. You're coming into our conference, bleep you, all right, with your, bark and empty bite from last year. Like, all right, you're coming into a real conference. But I think it shows who Lance Leipold is, that, whether what anybody thinks of this guy, he's coming into our conference. He's a fellow coach now. He's a peer. He's in the fraternity of Big 12 coaches. Not only am I going to reach out, they talk every couple weeks, and just have conversations. So that was cool to hear from Deion Sanders, and probably something that Brian Haney will bring up tonight in Hawk Talk with Lance Leipold about his relationship with Deion and why in particular, or is it that he does it with Dillingham and Deion and Utah's head coach, who's escaping me, but I can picture him right now. Did he do that with everybody? Did he do that with BYU and UCF, teams like that? But so that'll be interesting tonight. And then after that, it's a little show called Arrowhead Pride with Pete Sweeney and Jake Johnson.
Well, Sean now.
What?
That's what I am in Goodwill Hunting, aren't I?
Oh, that's right. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, Sean. Sorry. Robin Williams.
Callback.
There it is. Nice job. And I was not prepared for the callback. Nice job, Jack. Jack Johnson, Pete Sweeney, Arrowhead Pride Radio tonight at 7 o'clock. Bethany Bowman at 8 after that. And then Covell takes you the rest of the way at 9 o'clock. All right, let's get into the show. We'll talk some college basketball today as well. I want to start with the college football playoff as the latest in the rankings came out last night. And there's certainly some conversation that comes from the rankings. And should also point out there's going to be a lot of games that'll be played. 2 more weeks of games, tons of games left to be played. And so, yes, we'll see how this whole thing ultimately shakes out. But the couple observations that I had from last night. I think the Indiana conversation still permeates from them being number 5. I think the fact that they are number 5 and ahead of Notre Dame and ahead of any other 1 or 2 loss teams that have some pretty good wins on their resume. Notre Dame beat A&M and has 1 loss. Indiana's undefeated and has beaten nobody. Miami's where they are ranked. Ole Miss is ahead of Georgia, which is interesting. And then, as we guessed yesterday, Boise State would be the 4th highest ranked conference opponent and would get a bye. Does that end up being the case? Well, if BYU wins and then wins the next couple of weeks against Arizona State, that's a top 25 team, and then beats Colorado,
Sure.
then they'll be ranked ahead of Boise State, I believe, when it's all said and done.
And Boise State's only loss is a 3-point
Three-point
loss to the undefeated number 1
Yes.
seed, Oregon. So that was a good loss.
Yep.
That's a great loss for Boise State. Indiana almost needs to do the same thing against Ohio State.
Yeah.
If they have a 3-point loss or even a 7-point loss against Ohio State, I think it's going to squelch a lot of the, well, who have they played narrative, because you'll say, okay, look how competitive, look how good they were against the second-best team in college football. And if they win, of course, then they're in.
If they win, they're in. If they lose, I think it gets interesting, and there's going to be a massive debate.
It matters
across
how
the
they
country.
lose. To me, it matters. I don't think they have to win to get in. I think if they're 11-1,
I think the committee putting them at number 5 says they don't have to win to get in. I think it would be difficult for the committee to say, we think they're number 5 in the country, so do you think they're number 5 just because they're undefeated? Oh, okay, well, Army's undefeated. So why isn't Army number 5? So we think they're number 5 in the country because not only have they won all their games, but they've been impressive doing it, and the resume isn't really something we're worried about right now. Their strength of schedule, their opponent, isn't something that is holding us back from keeping them in the top 5. So if that's the case, if you add a 1 next to that, does it change everything then? All of a sudden, how they won and who they played that didn't matter the week before, now all of a sudden matters so much that they would drop from 5 to 13 or 14?
I mean, it's like Miami, because Miami hasn't played anyone, and they have 1 loss.
Yeah, and Miami and SMU will figure that out when they play each other in the conference championship. That's a win and get in, lose and you're out.
And Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. So if you're complaining about if you're a Notre Dame fan and you're saying, well, we beat A&M week 1.
Yeah.
Okay. You also lost to Northern Illinois.
At home.
Don't lose that game.
Right. And if Indiana loses to Ohio State, then the big debate would be, okay, so Notre Dame and Indiana. So Notre Dame has a great win, a good win, A&M, depending on what A&M does against Texas and if they play in the conference championship game. So does Notre Dame get in by virtue or get in above Indiana by virtue of having a really good win with a bad loss, as opposed to Indiana with no good wins and a good loss? Is a good loss better than a really good win and a bad loss?
The Army game for Notre Dame coming up will be a fairly important one, too.
And you know what? It's a huge one for Army.
Yeah.
Like Army could jump Boise State. Army could, I mean, if BYU and Colorado, lose one of the next 2, and then the winner of the Big 12 has 3 losses and Army's undefeated, and Boise State has 1 loss and Army's 1 win is undefeated and beat Notre Dame, Army now all of a sudden is the 4 seed, if that happens. So it just, and we'll see if the College Football Playoff Committee, if Army loses 1 game along the way and they keep them out, do they hate America? Like, that's really what it comes down to.
Well, see, if it were up to me, I would have Air Force in there, too.
And Navy.
I'd have an Army.
National Guard has a good team. They haven't played anybody this year, but, they're there whenever. If somebody needed to make the college, if you needed a team to come in at the last minute to make the college football playoff, I believe the National Guard is a good enough team that's right there ready to go.
What about the reserve? Is there like an Army reserve team?
There is, yeah. They're the backups to the Army.
The backups, okay.
They're the ones they're the walk-ons. The Army reserves are the ones
these are the important questions you won't hear anywhere else.
Exactly.
These are the questions.
We're getting to the real bottom of the whole thing. It's going to be an interesting debate, and it's going to be more worthy to me. Well, I don't know if more worthy.
More Xavier.
That's right. It's going to be there's going to be more X factors along the way than last year when it was Florida State.
Yeah.
Are they deserving, but their quarterback is gone? My opinion on that was, man, I would feel awful if I was a Florida State player, and I would be pissed if I was a Florida State fan. But I also wouldn't put them in the in the tournament. I also wouldn't put them in the top 4. Now, 12 teams, you know what, Florida State? You got there, you lost your quarterback, but we'll put you in one of the 12. All right, you're in the 12.
They probably would have even put them 4.
Top 4, though? Top 4, we're not going to put you in the college football, 4-team playoff there. I agreed with that decision. Also understanding it sucked for Florida State and those players and the fans. And I would be absolutely pissed if I was a Seminoles fan, okay? All of that, I think, I'm of two minds on those things.
Too bad they didn't have Joey Galloway on the coaching staff.
To rest their players.
Yeah, it would have fixed everything.
Rest Roark against – and you know what? Here's the thing. I think it's absurd to say that. But if we're sitting here saying, well, Indiana's number 5, so it doesn't matter what they do against Ohio State, they're in. Well, then the only way they could be out is by the committee showing last year that if you lose your star quarterback, you're out, whether you're undefeated or one loss or whatever. So the only way that if Roark is out, although Indiana's won with a backup quarterback.
And I would say 12 teams is so much different than 4.
Agreed. But if I think it's absurd to rest your quarterback because you could win the game. I mean, what's the easiest and best way to get into the college football playoff?
Win
the conference.
And what's the easiest and best way to lose your locker room? Would be to sit Chris Roark.
Rest your quarterback against
in the biggest
Ohio
game of the
State.
season. Yeah.
Hey, guys, I know we've been beating up on these bad teams, and it's a chance for us to prove ourselves.
Yeah.
But we're going to just go ahead and throw the white flag. And
I agree with everything everyone's saying. Like, it's not if we're going to lose, it's by how much.
By how much?
Yeah.
Yeah,
what
that's
would
right.
Anthony Richardson do?
I don't know. He would run it in for the game-winning touchdown is what
that
he
was
would do.
sick. That was awesome, by the way.
Against the Jets.
I meant take a play off, take a game off, but that was
Yeah,
Well, that's an example. It shows you how important the quarterback is. He took a game off, and they sat him for Joe Flacco, and you see what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, he beat the Jets. I mean, it is the Jets.
Also, the whole narrative about they ruined Anthony Richardson by sitting him a couple of games. Maybe they didn't ruin him because he came back and performed well, and they win that game
I think
against
that
the
was
Jets.
a mini suspension.
Yeah,
a mini suspension, and
totally
also
agree
don't
with
want
that.
to play him against the Vikings, who were going to confuse the absolute heck out of him.
And Joe Flacco's a veteran, and Joe Flacco looked awful and not knowing what the Vikings were doing defensively.
True.
So Anthony Richardson might have been.
It could have been a
in a
multifaceted
spin cycle.
approach there.
I do wonder as we talk about, like, real quick on the head-to-head and resume, because I'm a little confused by this. Ole Miss is ahead of Georgia. Ole Miss is number 9. Georgia's number 10. Ole Miss beat Georgia. They also, beat South Carolina. They have a loss on the road to LSU. Nothing wrong with that. But they've got a terrible loss at home to Kentucky that's 1-6 in conference play.
Yeah.
It's a terrible loss. Georgia has the same record as Ole Miss, but they have beaten number 3 Texas, number 11 Tennessee, and number 17 Clemson. And their losses are to number 7 Alabama on the road and number 9 Ole Miss on the road. But Ole Miss beat Georgia. So, okay, we're putting them at number 9 and Georgia's number 10.
Georgia's the better resume, but it's the head-to-head.
Yeah. So riddle me this on SMU and BYU. Because SMU is 13 and BYU is 14. SMU has beaten 0 top 25 teams, and their one loss is to BYU. BYU has a loss to KU, which looks bad because it's a 4-6 team and it's at home. But they do have a top 25 win against SMU on the road at SMU. So the resumes are pretty darn similar.
K-State needs to get back in the top 25 to really help.
But
that
I mean,
out.
the resumes are. Georgia has a clearly better resume, but lost to Ole Miss, so Ole Miss is ranked ahead of them. BYU and SMU have very similar resumes, but BYU beat SMU, and SMU's ahead of BYU. Like those are only like 5 spots apart. So that's where it's like, whatever the committee can say about we're doing this, we're doing that. Like I don't know how you sort of square that circle when it's number 9 and number 10 and number 13 and number 14, and they're two conflicting sort of viewpoints on head-to-head or strength of schedule or resume.
I thought they dropped BYU too far is what it was. They dropped them 8 spots. And I thought that was, again, we know, and maybe it's because we're here locally, and so we understand that Kansas is much better than their record, but even the betting odds would show you that KU was a pretty underrated team. They're playing a lot better football than their record indicates. I've been kind of a BYU supporter. I'm an SEC guy because of Mizzou, but I also obviously appreciate everything with the Big 12. I try to pump them up as much as I can. This is not me trying to pump up the Big 12. I just don't get how BYU dropped 8 spots. Miami, again, has not had a single good victory, and they've lost a game as well, and they're somehow 8th.
Yeah, they lost to Georgia Tech.
That part to me is befuddling. It does feel a little like I don't want to say Big 12 hate, but it kind of does.
They like the ACC more than the Big 12, they clearly like the ACC more than the Big 12, which is odd.
Makes zero sense to me.
Yeah.
I think the best part about this is there are still 2 weeks to go, but from the Big 12 standpoint, I think when you look at what the committee would want, I think you'd want Colorado to be the team that sneaks in from the Big 12 because BYU has barely escaped a lot of uncomfortable games this year. I mean, Oklahoma State, who's winless in conference, it took a 40-yard touchdown pass with 5 seconds to go to beat them in Provo. So my question becomes, after the KU game, and now they have to go to Tempe to take on Arizona State. I mean, BYU by Monday morning could be 18th, 19th, and out of this conversation.
And we could be talking about Colorado, Arizona State.
Yes.
In Dallas for the Big 12 championship game if Arizona State wins this weekend because they would have the same record in conference, but they would have the tiebreaker over BYU.
And then if Colorado, though, goes into Arrowhead Stadium and loses, now they've got 3 losses. They've got Oklahoma State in the final week, so I still think they would have a chance to get to Arlington. But to me, when I look at the college football playoffs and it kind of puts SMU in this conversation, it certainly puts Indiana in this conversation. I mean, if Indiana goes in and loses, I think by double digits, I don't think they go in. Because Purdue's the final week. They have 1 win, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing they could do to impress me enough to put them in. And I think that would answer all of our questions of they were 11-0 because their schedule was so soft. If I'm not mistaken, their one team they've played, they did beat them, but with a winning record was Washington, right?
It's the only
6-5, barely.
Only team they've played. The records of the teams they have played are 4-6, 4-6, 4-6, 5-5 Nebraska, 6-5 Washington, 4-6, 5-5. Their non-conference schedule, which I understand why Kurt Signetti did this. It's your first year at Indiana. You're trying to build up the program. We're not going to schedule Georgia in a non-conference game. We're not going to schedule Boise in a non-conference game. We're going to schedule a couple lower-level group of 5 teams and an FCS team. They beat FIU. FIU is 3-7 this year. They beat Charlotte. Charlotte is 3-7 this year. They beat Western Illinois in the FCS.
Which, by the way, I did not know Western Illinois was a team, but they have a great mascot.
What's the mascot?
The Leathernecks.
Isn't that where Colin Saunders is from?
That's
Oh,
he
isn't it?
Yeah,
Good
that's
pull.
right, yeah. Western Illinois is 3-8 this year. So they've played 3 teams in the non-conference that have a combined record of 9-22. But I understand why he built the schedule that way. I don't think building the schedule that way is wrong for your first year. But it does kill your argument if you're saying, yeah, but we beat some of these other teams, or we're undefeated, where if you're Texas and you go, okay, well, who was Texas beat? Well, they played Michigan in the non-conference. I know that Indiana played Michigan too. Indiana beat Michigan at home by 5 points. Texas beat Michigan on the road by 19 in the non-conference of sort of challenging themselves. They beat Colorado State, not great, but Colorado State 7-3 in the MAC, not 3-7 in Conference USA. You know what I mean? Not 3-8 in FCS. They're 7-3 in the MAC. They beat Vandy. They beat Bama. So I'm sort of using Texas as a comparison because if Texas loses to Texas A&M, well, then you're really discussing Indiana and Texas. Because who is Indiana beaten? Or, I mean, who is Texas beaten? They would have no top 25 teams.
For the top 12?
For the top 12.
Oh, I think Texas is in no matter what.
I think them being number 3, it makes them in no matter what, but I don't think that should be the case.
I don't
think they should be in. If they lose to A&M, they shouldn't be in.
A&M,
I'm with you, but
they'd have 2 losses, and they'd have no top 25 wins.
But when it comes down to Indiana, I don't think you compare Indiana to Texas. In my opinion, I think you compare Indiana to Notre Dame, Miami, SMU, maybe BYU. Those are the teams I'm comparing Indiana to.
Those won't matter because Miami or SMU, who wins will be automatically in, who loses
100%.
Yeah. So the at-large bids you compare them to would be
Notre Dame,
Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, and I think Georgia, Bama, and Ohio State are in because Bama's probably going to win. Well, if Texas wins against A&M and wins the SEC championship, then Bama would have to be
That's actually best case scenario for Indiana. Is they want
100%.
They want Texas to win.
100%. Because if Texas A&M wins and Texas and Indiana are being compared, that's rough for Indiana. Because
you're not winning that one.
So then it would be Ole Miss, it'd be Tennessee, it'd be Clemson, it'd be A&M with 3 losses, It'd be Texas with 2 losses.
I don't see how Clemson gets in personally.
Well, Clemson would be 10-2 with a win over South Carolina.
Only if they
beat South Carolina. They'd be 10-2 with a win over South Carolina and a win at Pitt. They would have losses to Georgia
they would
and
have
Louisville.
to beat South Carolina that final.
They would be a
week,
2-loss team with a loss to Georgia and Louisville against a 1-loss Indiana team whose losses to Ohio State. That's where you get into the discussion of and let's hear from Ward Manuel real quick, because how you're playing versus who you're playing is something that he was asked about. This is clip number 2. Let's play that one. Clip number 2, Ward Manuel, college football selection chair, was asked last night about, okay, so teams that may not be playing tough competition but are winning by a lot. Indiana. What do you think of sort of resume versus how a team is actually playing and what we're seeing on the field?
Well, I think watching the games and watching the teams play carries the day for most of us. We look at the data, we look at the stats, we see how other people compare and strength of schedules and all of those things. But we also have to watch the games and see how teams are performing in all facets of the game. And that really lends itself in the discussion of how people see the teams perform. And it's a lot of debate, a lot of discussion. People see it different ways, but that's the value, as you say, of having 13 members of this committee in the discussion that goes on.
Thought it was interesting. The first thing he said is how you're playing will win the day. So, stole that from Chris Kleiman. I mean, geez Louise, he should copyright that thing like Taco Tuesday. And
get
LeBron.
a sign so you can hit it before you go on the field.
That's exactly right. Win the dang day. How you're playing ultimately will win the day. So, essentially saying that's why we have Indiana number 5, because they're dominating teams. They can only play the teams in front of them. It is not their fault that Michigan is having a down year. It's not their fault that Michigan State hasn't been that good. It's not their fault that Nebraska, after
Jason, it's
beating,
not your fault.
It's not. I think that's Jack should be saying that. It's not their fault that Nebraska, after beating Colorado, has done nothing. Since then, and that's unfortunate because Nebraska beating Colorado was like, okay, here we go. Indiana beating Nebraska might be a little bit better if Nebraska didn't have all these other losses. It's not their fault that UCLA coming over to the Big Ten, is 3-5 in conference and 4-6 overall, and Maryland is having a down year, 1-6 in conference. Like, they can only play the teams in front of them. They're also winning by like 30 points, in all of these games. So that's where it comes into, if you changed Indiana to Michigan State. Not even Ohio State, because Ohio State's an obvious one. If Ohio State was sitting here undefeated and had the same resume, they'd be number 2. They're still number 2, but you get the point. They'd be, and there wouldn't be any question of, well, if you lost to Michigan in the last game of the season and didn't make the Big Ten championship, you're still in. Indiana's different because, they won 9 games the last 3 years combined.
I just still think you're looking at Miami. I think Notre
What's
Dame.
Miami and SMU?
I think it's Notre Dame and Miami is what you're looking at, is basically what the Indiana team the record and what the teams they've basically played have. Yet Miami with a loss and Notre Dame with a loss get the benefit of the doubt, while Indiana
they're behind.
Most likely will not.
They're behind Indiana.
Well, because they haven't lost. I'm saying if Indiana had one loss, zero chance they're there.
The problem is Indiana's one loss would mean they don't play in the conference championship game.
Sure.
And Miami can still win their conference. Notre Dame can still win the independent conference over UConn and whoever else.
Yeah, go into a legitimate Notre Dame irritates me to no end.
I know.
To no end.
I know.
Sorry, Grunny, but
like
join
Dame.
a conference.
You don't like Notre
Well,
Dame.
and also Notre Dame has played a better schedule because of the fact that Army's ranked. Louisville was ranked at the time, and now Texas A&M is actually a team that people are thinking could beat Texas. And also Miami beat Florida. I know Florida stunk at the time, but Florida's not exactly the worst team in the world. They're beating teams like LSU and hanging close with Georgia. So I see where they have Miami a little ranked higher, also because Cam Ward is a little more electric and also a Heisman candidate.
You also lost to Northern Illinois.
Well, that's Notre Dame.
He's talking about Notre Dame.
I'm talking about Miami.
Oh, Miami. Okay.
And I still think Notre Dame's, I think they're better than BYU.
I think the committee needs.
They lost to a team that lost to Miami of Ohio, Toledo, Ball State, Buffalo, North Carolina State. That's the team they lost to.
And Ole Miss lost to Kentucky, and Kentucky's been
Kentucky would wax Northern Illinois.
I don't know.
Who knows? I know. It's all...
Kentucky's been bad. They've got some internal turmoil going on with their coaches and everything. So when you got that going on, It's not guaranteed to beat anybody right now. But I don't know. I would guess. I would pick Kentucky to win straight up against Northern Illinois. Yes, I would.
I think the committee on Saturday needs this to be a blowout for Ohio State. I think they need Indiana to lose by 14-plus points, so that way they can feel justified. And Indiana goes 11-1. The easy answer would be they got scorched by
I was
Ohio
shaking
State.
my head because I thought, if they lose, it does need to be a blowout.
Yeah.
I agree. It
Well,
cannot be 14 points.
So for Indiana, there's a couple of things, a few ways. One, win, and then you're in no matter what.
Right.
Because then you could be 12-1 and still be in there if you don't win the conference, but win the game. Or lose close. But also you would need, just to make sure you're good to go, Texas beat A&M. Texas and A&M's out. They're eliminated.
I think you're good at that point.
Well, you would then have a debate of some other teams. If Clemson beats a top 20 South Carolina team and Indiana does not beat another team to increase their resume, all Indiana's done is gotten worse resume by losing to Ohio State, while Clemson would beat a top 20 team. And they're, number 17, they would just have to get into the top 11 or 12. What is South Carolina? How good is South Carolina? If Clemson were to lose to South Carolina, A&M loses to Texas, and you lose close, then I think you're probably in. I think you're pretty safe in being in, because then at that point, Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, Notre Dame, and then it'd be like Ole Miss and Indiana and Tennessee. Do you be choosing like one of those four? You could also, it'd be okay if Ole Miss or Tennessee lost one of the next couple of games along the way too. But
do at some point, we should all do this, where we put who we think the college football playoffs should be. We should all just write down our 12, how we think it's going to play
Championship week, maybe?
and see.
Yeah.
Well,
we can do it next week.
Yeah, and just see how different it's going to look
after Indiana and Ohio State.
Yeah,
because I
would love to see how we all differ and maybe give a little background of why.
See, if Indiana lost, I wouldn't have them in. I wouldn't have them in.
And we disagree there.
I know, yeah, which is totally
Again,
fine.
if they lose by 45, I'm with you. But
Look, it's not their fault that the Big Ten is down this year. Thank you, Sean. But also, if this was like a group of 5 team that we used to argue about back in the day of if this was Tulane, you know what I mean? Like if Tulane had if Tulane played 3-7, 3-8, 3-7 in the non-conference, and then 4-6, 4-6, 4-6, 5-5, 6-5, 4-6, 5-5.
I'm a broken record, but we're talking about it basically as the ACC. We're basically talking about Miami, Notre Dame, and
the question is, does Indiana a lower
Clemson?
Does Indiana, a lower profile team in a much bigger conference, get the nod over a Tulane? That would, be because this is the conversation we would have about group of 5 teams.
Yeah.
They haven't played anybody, but they're dominating those teams. Okay. Well, they haven't played anybody yet. Indiana's got a chance just to take care of business this weekend against Ohio State. I don't think they'll do it, but it'll be damn impressive if they do, and they will shut everybody up, including me. I
am rooting so hard for Indiana over Ohio State. It's crazy.
Well, I'm rooting for.
I'm gonna buy Indiana gear. I'm gonna get a tattoo that says "Who's your daddy" on my arm.
He just said that's a legally binding verbal agreement that he just made there. So we'll take you to court if you don't do that. So let's go IU. I'm rooting for whatever it is that gets Texas out of the college football playoff. More so next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. You know, people wondering if you make the college or your conference championship game. I like that little pause there. Wondering if you make your conference championship game, are you going to get hurt by losing in the conference championship game? Case in point, A&M. A&M has 2 losses. If they beat Texas and then they go to the conference championship game and then lose, they have 3 losses. They are out. As opposed to, let's just say, Ole Miss that has 2 losses that wouldn't play in the conference championship game at that point. Or Bama that has 2 losses that would get the tiebreaker to the conference championship game. Or even if we said, Bama. Bama's a better one because, Bama has 2 losses now, and if they don't make the conference championship game, I think they're in. If they make the conference championship game and lose to Texas or Texas A&M, and now they've got 3 losses. So here's Lane Kiffin yesterday afternoon at his press conference, and talking about, he was asked about the conference championship game being a detriment to some of the conferences to make the college football playoff if you go there and lose when you might have been in the conference, in the college football playoff if you didn't have to play in your championship game.
I've talked to other coaches, so I'll just kind of give you the feeling from some other coaches that they don't want to be in it. The reward to get a bye versus the risk to get knocked out completely, that's a really big risk just to get a bye. So I think it's ended up being a very unique situation of all postseason sports, the way that system's set up there and how you could go to that and get knocked out. And if you don't go, you're in.
The thing is, though, he would benefit from that because he ain't going to the conference championship game.
Yeah.
All right, so it's either, A&M and Alabama or Texas and Alabama. Alabama's got the tiebreaker over all these different teams because of the conference opponent win percentage. The conference opponents they've played have a higher win percentage than Georgia and Ole Miss and Tennessee and, A&M if they lose to Texas, or Texas if Texas loses to A&M. Bama has the highest. So Bama's going to win the tiebreaker ultimately over all these different teams. So Ole Miss wouldn't go. But in my scenario, Ole Miss not going to the conference championship game, and at 10-2, I have them in the college football playoff. If they were to go to the conference championship game and lose to Alabama, that's now 3 losses, and they've got 1 win on their resume, and that'd be Georgia, but that's now 3 losses. And one of those losses was at home to Kentucky. That gives you a bad loss, a good loss at LSU, and then a loss in the conference championship game as opposed to a 1-loss team that didn't play. Here's Ward Manuel, college football playoff selection chair, was asked specifically about Lane Kiffin's comments of teams thinking the committee will not put enough weight on losing a conference championship game and having to play that 13th game.
I can't speak for Lane and, the coaches he spoke with, but I know that the value of winning the conference championship for teams and for student athletes and coaches is very high. We hold those teams who will make the conference championships in high esteem. It is a great reflection of the seasons that these teams have had. When you make and you play in the conference championship, we will evaluate it. We will take a look at it as another data point. We were asked by the commissioners as a committee to evaluate it all the way through the conference championship games and not to stop the week before with our final rankings. And so we're obligated to take a look at it, but we have great respect for those teams who make the championship games, and then we'll assess the performance of those games. But there's nothing that says to me that you should fear playing in the conference championship game, because you never know how things are going to work out in front or behind you if you're just sitting at home.
We'll find out. We'll see if there's a team that's going to be on the bubble.
Sounded like a fence he was sitting on right there.
A little bit of it. We hold them in high esteem, but we're also going to analyze what happens in those games. And they wanted us to take the entire season, including every single conference commissioner and the presidents of those schools in the conference, they know there's a risk reward. Well, they know there's a risk of losing your conference championship game, and it's why the Big 12 at one point didn't have the conference championship game, because it cost them a couple, Missouri a couple times.
Well, that was my point. Was Missouri was the one that always comes to mind, and
really,
shockingly, it's
twice
the Mizzou alum
twice, and then the SEC championship game, twice.
So
maybe just win the conference championship game next time, Missouri.
Yeah,
and you don't have to worry about
there is a little bit of that though. Like there is a little bit of.
But then it also bit the Big 12 when Baylor and TCU were tied and they didn't play in a conference championship game and they didn't have that extra data point to put them over the top.
It's always going to be season by season. It's always going to be year by year. Missouri fans were always going to be salty because of that happening, and KU, of all teams, being the one that jumped them.
Yeah, I mean, I can laugh about it now, but at the time it wasn't funny. So, yeah, we'll see. They will have an opportunity, depending on what happens in these conference championship games, to prove that, you make it. Because whether we say there's precedent or not, I think moving forward, if there's something similar to this and there's precedent of, well, that team was right there with the same resume and they were in before the conference championship game. Then they went and lost the conference championship game and then they're out for a team that didn't play. Well, you've set a precedent of that matters, and you essentially said that's a playoff game. You got eliminated from the playoffs, which you can say. I wouldn't necessarily disagree if they said that's a playoff game for them, and they lost to a playoff team. Quite literally, the team that won is in the playoffs, and they lost. Boy, having divisions would help because then that would be a playoff game. There, you would win your division and make the playoffs. It's just that first playoff game is your conference championship game. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. And I do want to talk a little bit of the Royals and yet another Royal getting royally screwed. The Royals. We'll explain. We're coming up next. We already know that J.J. Piccolo finished second in Executive of the Year to a GM that took his team from 92 wins to 93 wins. And we find out last night that Matt Quattrero finishes second to Stephen Vogt in Manager of the Year award as the Cleveland Guardians win the Central, and he is named Manager of the Year. I disagree. I think it should have been Matt Quattrero. He helped. If J.J. Piccolo was an Executive of the Year, then Matt Quattrero needs to be Manager of the Year. If Matt Quattrero is Manager of the Year, then I can understand why you say, no, J.J. Piccolo's close. They both finished second. Clearly, they both did fine jobs. Okay, finishing second in both is not terrible. Okay, they didn't get royally screwed. But here's my point about where I think my frustration is even more heightened than I thought it would be. Vogt got 27 of 30 first-place votes.
Yeah.
Like, I was looking at different straw polls from different websites yesterday, and almost all of them had Quattrero barely winning over Stephen Vogt. And it was like, oh, it's Quattrero with 8 first-place votes, and Stephen Vogt with like 7, and A.J. Hinch with 3. And then you'd look at another website, and it's like, oh, Quattrero has 10 of these, and Stephen Vogt has 5.
Trust the polls, Jason.
I agree with that. That's absolutely true. 27 of 30? Quattrero got 2 first-place votes for Manager of the Year?
Yeah.
Like, that is just... I mean, all 3 of the votes came from the American League Central, but it is a little bit annoying that I know that Cleveland was not expected to do what they did, but the Royals improved by 30 games. And Stephen Vogt lost Shane Bieber. Okay, that sucks. He had to figure that out. He had a dynamite bullpen with Clase in the back end that he can go to, and the injuries to his starting lineup wasn't like, you lose Vinny Pasquantino, Michael Massey with a back injury, and your bullpen is struggling, and you got to overcome those things, like to win 30 more games, and just to say, well, yeah, but they had Reagans, Lugo, and Waka. That's why they did it.
I think the dumb part about this is, for the case for Stephen Vogt, you could say, well, the front office didn't really give them a lot of pieces. A lot of what they had to work with was in-house guys. Their bullpen, there's a lot of rookies there. The Class A deal had happened a while ago. Therefore, he took a group that was very cheap, and they won the division. And even though they don't factor in the postseason, they went somewhat far in the postseason. Yeah. They had taken down Detroit, who was red hot, and then they at least gave the Yankees a fight. But then I think it kind of contradicts itself, because if it's Matt Quattrero finishing second, you go, well, you think about it. They had Seth Lugo, they had Michael Waka. So the moves that were made to make that team go from 56 and 106 to 86 and 76, shouldn't that have given J.J. Piccolo Executive of the Year? So it has to be one or the other.
Exactly.
Either the executive made the moves to improve a team by 30 games, or it's the manager that didn't have to improve by 30 games, and that's where I think baseball kind of screwed up there. I mean, the Brewers got Executive of the Year and Manager of the Year, taking a 92-win team to a 93-win team. Exactly. I can't really understand.
They lost Corbin Burns, but still, like, they won 92 games. So the Executive of the Year goes from 92 wins to 93 wins by not signing Corbin Burns and then figuring it out. Okay, well, what about a team that went 56 to 86 and didn't have a choice of re-signing Corbin Burns?
That's the one that I think, to me, it's Piccolo. That's the one. I'm cool with Vogt winning, because I think a lot of folks may have had them 3rd or 4th in the AL Central, right? Didn't a lot have Minnesota, Detroit, KC, then maybe even Cleveland.
Minnesota, and then Cleveland, Detroit, Kansas City were all sort
of
mixed.
They're all kind of in
middle.
there. So, honestly, with Vogt, I didn't have an issue with him
I have an issue
winning.
with the 27 first
The
place
27 kind of got me. I think it should have been J.J. Piccolo. I'm not going to sit here and be like too angry about it, because he's still got a lot of credit getting second. Obviously,
second's the first loser. If you're not first, you're last.
It's almost like they ate into each other, because they both got credit and no one got the top end credit. And now Bobby Witt Jr. is probably going to get second.
You know what? Lamar Jackson.
Seth Lugo getting second.
Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, they're going to eat into each other's MVP votes. It's like the Heisman when 2 West Coast players. Well, McCaffrey and this other guy can't possibly be Heisman because the West Coast votes are going to split. We'll wait till all precincts are reporting.
then you are far more successful.
She's crunched the numbers, and the results are clear.
The back of Booty isn't as good, as it turns out.
If she picks a dog, she'll have the math to back it up.
It's not like Travis Kelce has done. My dog is very excited about this, just so you know.
It's Cynthia Freeland of NFL Network. Now in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. We've got you for 3 more hours. We'll hear from the Kansas City Chiefs a little bit later on this hour. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. We'll see who else is at the podium with those two guys coming off the first loss of the season. Joining us now, Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert, here talking some NFL football. Cynthia, welcome into the show. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. The dog park was closed this morning, so the boys were really sad. But other than that, we're good.
that is too bad. I feel bad for the dogs, but that's okay. You know. It's all good. They'll be okay. They get to hang out with you. They're fine. It could be worse. Could be worse things in the world. Cynthia Freeland is our guest. All right, let's start with the Chiefs' first loss of the season. We woke up on Monday around here. The sun came out, and then Tuesday it came out, and this is now 3 days in a row that the sun has come out after the Chiefs lost. I will say, as a quick aside, I haven't seen as many total panics of this is the worst thing, this team sucks, and I feel like there's a little bit of the Chiefs have been in this position before, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, they lost that game, plays could have been made. All right, let's see what happens the rest of the way. What was your reaction and takeaway from the 30-21 loss?
I mean, no one likes a loss if you're a Chiefs fan, of course. You want every single game to be a win. But I actually think in the long term, when you step back and take a look at what it means now not to have to chase perfection in any sort of way or even give it a second thought, that is very freeing. In fact, I mean, congratulations to the Broncos. I think that they're going to be able to, in Week 18, face a team that's without a bunch of starters and maybe get the win. But point being is, now it's really about optimizing for the postseason and getting that first round bye. I know it seems weird because the Bills are now second closest in terms of earning the bye, but their schedule from here on out is significantly more difficult than the Chiefs. So it's not to say I'm not worried about it, and they can't, obviously they need to keep winning, but in terms of what should happen, to me, this actually makes their Super Bowl chances go up.
Interesting. And that is because they can maybe rest players at the end of the season, or the stress or pressure of an undefeated season is eliminated. What would the Super Bowl odds going up, how would that be affected?
To me, it's more about being able to rest players in Week 18 without any concern, right? So being able to rest some people, and then you get potentially 2 weeks off in a row. If there are any needs, as of right now, in terms of injuries, if you look league-wide, I mean, I know Chiefs fans can be like, Cynthia, Richie Rice, et cetera, but the reality is, compared to many other teams, the Chiefs are actually very healthy. So if you're talking about the ability to go into that, one-game sample size playoffs after having someone, be able to rest up for 2 weeks, that is massive. So to me, that means more upside come mid-February as opposed to mid-January.
Yeah, it's interesting. And one of the things that we've sort of discussed around here, and I think if they would have won against the Buffalo Bills, it would have created at least a scenario later on in the season that, they play those 3 games in 11 days, and the third one being on Christmas Day against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then they've got that kind of half bye week before the Denver Broncos. And so conventional wisdom would be you rest your players Week 18, but I would wonder if they had already had the 1 seed wrapped up, Cynthia, would it have made more sense to not play your players on 3 days rest against the Steelers on the road and then come back and play Week 18 against Denver, knowing you get a bye week the next week, as opposed to if you play against Pittsburgh and you rest your players in Week 18, that would be 24 or 25 if they played on a Sunday or a Saturday or Sunday, 24 or 25 days between games between the Steelers and the divisional round. And then I do think we really get into the conversation of rest versus rust of they haven't had to play competitive football because they've had the 1 seed wrapped up, and then they've been sitting for almost a month. And they're going to be playing a team that had to fight to make the playoffs and just won a wild card game. I would really wonder what Andy Reid would do at that point if you'd rather rest against the Steelers, come back play against the Broncos, or say, "Now we're gonna rest them on Week 18."
Well, I think there's a difference between rest and rest for the sake of rest and rest for the sake of somebody's actually hurt, right? So if you're talking about someone coming back from an injury versus if you're talking about someone who, you could maybe make sure that, Week 18 or Week 17, however you want to be strategic about it, is a little bit more favorable for them. So I think having flexibility, I mean, what a nice problem to have, right? So great. I think wrapping up the 1 seed right now is the main concern, and then you can worry about those dynamics later. But rest becomes a moot point if it's, getting back from an injury versus having to play on 50% or one, less than ideal circumstances. But also, you have to remember, it seems like those last 2 games now are going to have some playoff implications because both the Broncos somehow and the Steelers have massive. I mean, the Steelers right now they're in pole position. So, and the Broncos could be fighting for a playoff spot. It's very interesting, some of those dynamics that could go into it. But, again, wrapping up the 1 seed, that gets to be the focus now, which I think is a very favorable position to be in. And then if you want to work with dynamics of, which rest versus, like I actually know, and I'm always in awe of the performance analytics team I don't think they call it that, but basically the health team for the Chiefs. They do a really nice job, so they can figure out the load management, if you will, at that point, should they be in that favorable situation.
It's interesting. Case in point would be last year when they got to rest some players in Week 18 because they already had the 3 seed wrapped up and they couldn't get the 2 seed or the 4 seed. It was done.
Right.
And Travis Kelce got the day off, got the game off. And he looked like a different man the next 4 games going through the playoffs. And he even said the game against Buffalo, the divisional round game, so he rested Week 18, then he played against Miami, and he said even against Buffalo he felt more fresh than Miami game because he had that week off. He's like, for some reason it even felt better the second week back having that week off because he was a different animal there. So to your point, rest for the sake of rest or rest because – let's get this guy healthy. Let's get this guy a little less banged up and things like that. Yeah, it certainly helped for Travis Kelce last year, no doubt. Visiting with Cynthia Freeland, our guest. Any concerns coming out of that game for the Chiefs of what we saw? We watched a team that couldn't get off the field on third down. 9 of 15 the Bills were, and 6 of those 9 conversions were 6 or more yards for Josh Allen. The Chiefs had a couple of turnovers, one early turnover that's been, a bugaboo for Patrick Mahomes this year. They couldn't connect with Xavier Worthy. The pass protection had some of the things and the flaws and issues for the Chiefs all came to light there against the Bills. And I would say if you play a good team on the road and your flaws are exposed in a game, you're probably not winning that game. So any major or overriding concerns from that game for the Chiefs in the loss?
I feel like I've seen this story before. I've heard this story before. Like, regular season, Bills treat this like their Super Bowl. Somehow Chiefs don't win. Get to the postseason, things are different. I think part of it is like at some point, your flaws do catch up to you, number one. But number two, I do actually think that the Bills view this as one of, if not their most important game, period, full stop. I mean, I was told they brought Von Miller in specifically, this is a couple of years ago, obviously, to try to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So part of it to me is this regular season, ability to really get up for this game, especially when it's at home, especially when you have, a lot of narratives around their wide receivers, not, are they even playing? What's going on? So to me, there's this is what happens. I don't feel it's an indictment of any of the flaws of the Chiefs beyond this one particular game. It is hard to keep winning. It is hard to keep winning, especially when you're relying on, it's just hard to be undefeated at all. And it's hard to beat good teams on the road, especially when it comes to, a team you are specifically designed to be playing against.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I also wonder, too, Cynthia Freeland's our guest. I don't know if you know this or in conversations around the league or people with the Chiefs, there's been this assumption and viewpoint around the Chiefs and Andy Reid that when they play teams in the regular season that they expect to see in the postseason, there are some things, quote, held back, that you don't throw the kitchen sink there in the regular season. And then in the postseason, the playoffs, you'll play off of what you did there and break out some things that maybe you would have used earlier, but you were really saving it for that particular matchup. Is there anything to that? Is there any weight to the sort of theory behind Andy Reid against opponents in the regular season that they'll face in the playoffs, that he holds things back or uses things that he wouldn't use in the postseason because he wants to then adjust and have them think he's going to do that?
Well, I do think that is real, especially when you have 15 and you have Travis at 87 and you have all the weapons. I don't think a lot of coaches have the luxury of being able to do that, but I do think that, you probably show a blander version of the playbook the first time you play someone, especially if both teams are in the position that they are. I mean, the Bills pretty much have mathematically, I can't remember the numbers, but it's like a very small chance that they don't win their division. So, I mean, they could have it wrapped up, I think, next week or something. So, that is a situation where you know that this is going to be a postseason team. You know that you are going to be a postseason team if you are fortunate enough to have that situation, or maybe it's something to do with game script where, all right, maybe we'll show some stuff for the first, I don't know, 4 drives, and then after that, we're going to keep it a little bit more vanilla.
Yeah, they did something much different in this game, I will say, than I've seen this year. They had some motions, and they had wide receivers lined up in the backfield. The first play of the game, Patrick Mahomes almost did 2 full circles after he received the snap. He turned around and faked it to Kareem Hunt, and then turned around fully again and then handed it to Xavier Worthy. Like, it was almost 2 full spins for Patrick Mahomes, and we haven't seen that. We haven't seen McCole Hardman, in the backfield and then swing out for, an outlet swing pass over on the sideline. We haven't seen them do that this year. So there were some different things that they showed in this game, and maybe, come playoff time, it'll be completely played off of that. And we also didn't see Spagnuolo spy Josh Allen, which to me was a real surprise. He's not a big fan of spying quarterbacks, but he has spied Lamar Jackson earlier this year. And last year in the playoffs, Willie Gay was used as a spy on Josh Allen, but he didn't do that this go-around, which was a little curious.
Yeah, it's a little curious. Plus, I mean, there were some things, obviously, like no Spencer Brown. You're going to not show – I would imagine you'd be their right tackle. Obviously, you're going to change a little bit about how the pressure works because now you're playing back. Like there's a few things that were what I would say. They're like, okay, well, why would I show you my best stuff if you're not even with your full like complement of players? So that's the kind of stuff where I would love to know the actual like inside, like be on the headset for that, but. As outsiders, we can just see we did see some differences, just like you pointed out. Yeah. And I do think we would not – I don't think there's any way we wouldn't see a spy of Josh Allen come playoffs. Yeah. I just don't – I can't imagine Spags would that would blow my mind.
Yeah, me too. And it's also curious. Like, Steve Spagnuolo will talk tomorrow. I don't know if he'll be asked specifically this or even if he would, answer, candidly with this, but – the 2 big plays to Amari Cooper, the 3rd down and 7 play on the opening drive, that was a great throw, dropped right in the bucket, and Najee Johnson had great position. He turned around a little bit late, but that was a tough throw and a great catch by Cooper on the sideline. And then the catch down the sideline that was eventually replayed and reviewed, and they called it a catch. Both of those times, Najee Johnson was manned up one-on-one on Amari Cooper, and Trent McDuffie was manned up on Mac Hollins. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and I would wonder what the thought process behind that is for. And by the way, those 2 plays were on opposite sides of the field, so it wasn't like McDuffie, you're staying on the left, and Najee, you're playing on the right. We're going to Richard Sherman you. You're just going to take care of one side of the field, and we're good. That was curious as to why, without Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid, you wouldn't sort of have McDuffie just travel with Amari Cooper and go play that guy one-on-one, and we'll worry about these other players, and not you've got Mac Hollins one-on-one, and we're going to leave Najee Johnson one-on-one with Amari Cooper.
I think it's because Mac Hollins competed in the same chess competition as both Justin Reed and Drew Tranquil, and he knew that he was playing chess and not checkers. But I'm kidding. Justin Reed won, by the way, just so we're clear. Last year Drew won, and this year Justin won. So that must be it. McDuffie knew Mac Hollins and his shoeless wonder. The shoeless wonder was going to be playing chess instead of checkers.
Exactly right. That weird guy that doesn't wear shoes for some reason until he plays football. And
I just don't understand why you wouldn't wear shoes in Buffalo. It's freezing there right now. What are you doing?
Yeah, if he had his choice, he wouldn't wear shoes to play football in either. Like, he's required to wear cleats. Like, it's weird, but he doesn't want to. It's odd. I don't know, man. The guy just wants to be free. He doesn't want his feet constricted. Rex Ryan's all good with that too. We're visiting with Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. I wanted to get your thoughts on, one of the things that we've seen with Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy, that it's been 3 weeks in a row that they didn't connect. They had opportunities. They had probably 3 touchdowns that they could have connected on. One against Tampa Bay that Xavier Worthy stepped out of bounds and wasn't aware of the sideline. Against Denver, Mahomes just threw it out of bounds. Worthy was running the red line, and Mahomes missed him. It happens. And then on Sunday afternoon, Mahomes, if he throws it a little bit better, it's probably a 70-yard touchdown. I say probably. But at minimum, that has to be a completion because a wide receiver in the NFL needs to catch that and get his feet in. So those things didn't happen. I preface it and bring those up because they were there. Okay, they were open, and I would hope that as the season goes along that you'll hit on those because they did connect in LA with the Chargers in the 50-plus yard touchdown. My question to you is, with the protection for Patrick Mahomes right now and lack thereof, especially in this game against Buffalo, is Xavier Worthy wasted is a bad word, limited in how often you can. So when we say they didn't hit on those, well, those were the only chances they had. So you were 0 for 1 in that game, and that was the one you got. You were 0 for 1 in another game, that was the one you got. Is he limited with some of these deeper, longer developing routes or deeper drops because right now the Chiefs' protection is not up to standards that it should be to take advantage of somebody whose speed can create separation down the field in these route concepts that Andy Reid is scheming Xavier Worthy open? It's just a couple of those in the Buffalo game, Cynthia, that Xavier Worthy was busting wide open free. Mahomes was already tucking and running because he had pressure in his face or, coming from the side.
I mean, it's never good for him to be tucking and running and under pressure. It's easier to complete passes when you're not under pressure. But I still don't think that it's something that there's so many. It's not like they're doing it 10 times a game, right? Mm-hmm. Like these are still like 1, 2. They're very few and far between, which means that number one, the more reps you have doing something, the better chances they are to succeed. I mean, obviously, if you put it on tape more, then people will watch the film and say, okay, this is when they're going to do it. But I still think we're still in kind of small numbers territory here. And of course, the odds are better when you're not under pressure. But I would say there's probably some other plays in the playbook that have a heavier formation that would be far less likely to be under pressure. Mm-hmm. And we probably haven't seen those yet on purpose. So
yeah, maybe. Yep.
That's not to say I'm not like worried or I don't think there's like something to be said for that. And your observation, I thought a lot about this as well. But I still think that if you really wanted that to work, you wouldn't let the pressure happen.
Yeah, yeah, and that was and I had on Twitter somebody respond and don't know the name, so I apologize. It was Nick on Twitter, but he said, should the Chiefs be having these deeper drops? Can he have a shorter drop in the pocket while allowing these routes to develop, as opposed to how deep one specific play was that ended up being a sack by Von Miller and Gregory Rousseau, both won against the tackles, and it was one to where Xavier Worthy was coming wide open on the other side of the field, right behind Travis Kelce, and the safety was another 10, 15 yards deep and backpedaling. And if Mahomes had another, half second or second, it could have been another big 30 or 40-yard play or maybe a touchdown to Xavier Worthy, but he didn't have time. But it was a deeper drop where Rousseau was able to beat Wanya Morris, who isn't athletic enough to really get to the outside, that Rousseau was fast enough and Mahomes had such a deep drop that is there an element of just maybe you just got to eliminate those and find other ways to protect even with those longer developing routes like that one that was going to spring wide open.
You know what, though? I was thinking about this a lot, though. I actually think it's smart to show plays to, it's like poker, right? Like sometimes you want to fold strategically or do things strategically so no one knows your tendencies and no one knows what you're going to do. I mean, why wouldn't you throw something, why wouldn't you do this deeper drop? Maybe I'm overthinking this, but whatever.
I think
why
everybody
wouldn't
is.
you
That's
try
what we do,
this
Cynthia. Come on.
Right. It's their whole life.
Yes. I talk 20 hours a week about sports.
But why wouldn't you throw in some of those deeper drops so that then you're getting an opportunity, if you think about it, then they don't know. Because all defense happens to be is process of elimination. And if now you're throwing it and putting it in their head that this could potentially not be limited, like this could, you're not limited to whatever, then that would change the calculus come playoff when it's a higher leverage, higher pressure situation. So I like the strategy of not necessarily doing the higher probability thing all of the time. I think it's smart. I think it shows really good discipline from an offensive coordinator to be a good poker player, if you will. But it doesn't always, we can always go back and call plays.
Yeah.
after the fact, but there's a reason why, Andy Reid will be in Canton and the rest of us are like, we can also eat cheeseburgers, just not in Canton.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we could be in Canton, just not, we won't have a bust in Canton and enshrined there. Cynthia Freeland is our guest. Sean McDermott's decision to go for it on 4th and 2. I hated the decision because I didn't want him to go for it. So I hated it from the perspective that I'm watching the game, because I think every Chiefs fan was like, kick the field goal, come on, kick the field goal. And I always appreciate when coaches do the exact opposite of what the other team wants you to do. And I don't think anybody on the Chiefs or the sideline or watching wanted the Bills to go for it. How, I shouldn't say easy, because some coaches wouldn't do that. They would take the quote-unquote justifiable, defensible decision of, well, we went up by 5, and we were up a touchdown. There's only 2 minutes to play, blah, blah, blah. What did you make of Sean McDermott's decision, and was that an easy decision in reality to make?
I mean, to be fair, Sean is usually a very risk-averse when it comes to things like that. So I liked straying from your typical, like, what people would expect from you specific. Like, if it were certain coaches, they're going for it, right? Like, it doesn't really matter because they're more gambling head coaches. But with Sean, it makes you, like, second-guess it because he tends to be a little bit more conservative. So I like straying from tendencies. I think it's a smart play to do. I mean, if you're a Chiefs fan, you didn't like it, but, like, I think it's very interesting to take that strategy, especially like it tells your team that you believe in them in a very specific way. You've probably, my guess is, if you went into their film and their meeting the week prior, they're like, listen, we're going to try to do something a little riskier here if we've got blank and blank and blank in this coverage and there's no spy on Josh Allen and blah, 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 blah. So just be prepared. This is what's going to happen. To me, it wasn't something where, like, it feels like something he had thought through when he was very level-headed, not something that was a spur-of-the-moment thing, especially with the play they called. So I don't know. I feel like, I think, like I said, there's just a lot of real estate in all of those Bills' minds that is taken up by every single Chiefs player and coach, and they thought it through really, really well, and it felt very calm, because especially you don't have Spencer Brown. I keep coming back to him, but that right tackle's played really well this year. You'd think that without him and without you are down some pass catchers. I think that they probably made that decision like Tuesday.
Yeah, and if I
they
was
just got a chance to do it.
Yeah, and if I was the head coach, the decision to me would be, the choice would be, do I want to put the game in my superstars' hands, or do I want to put the game in their superstars' hands? And I choose, because on 4th and 2, I can put it in Josh Allen's hands and we can win, or I can kick the field goal, go up by 5, and put it in Patrick Mahomes' hands to see if we win.
Right.
I want to give it to Josh Allen. I want him to do it. And by the way, breaking tendencies, I loved this too, hearing from Josh Allen after the game was over on that specific play on 4th and 2. He said, the Chiefs on 3rd and 4th and short play a lot of man. They play man. And so we had a man beater called, and they showed man. And so he said, I could have checked out of it, but we got the look we wanted. And he said, as soon as he took the snap, they dropped to zone, and he thought, oh, bleep. The routes are not there. That this is not going to, these crossers, these scrapes are not going to work against zone. They're just going to hand off. And at that point, he makes the decision where now I got to be a superstar. Now I just got to go and make a play. And an MVP caliber player made a play. And it sucks because it happened to the Chiefs, but there's an element of realizing what other teams have felt for so many years when Patrick Mahomes has the perfect defense called against the play you called and just says, I'll find a way to beat it. It doesn't matter. Even if I say, oh, bleep, in my mind, this is the wrong play for that defense, I still score a 26-yard touchdown in doing that. So there is something, there's something beautiful in football about that aspect of it, even being on the losing side of it.
I've often said that if like Chiefs fans could have an out-of-body experience for a while and Patrick weren't around or something, like they would really like Josh Allen, like especially his personality.
I like him a lot.
It's very Chiefs-like. Like, I know that he's and this rivalry is my favorite in all of football, but, it's just, like, the way that Josh Allen acts and is, and he's all ball, and, like, the two of them are they don't play similarly, but they're personality-wise, like, good dudes, love football, really, like, that's it.
Yeah, no, I
Just like good dudes who love football.
I like Josh Allen a lot, and
Yeah.
so seeing him have success does not bother me in any way, shape, or form. Real quick,
Except for in January.
that's right.
You're a
Yes,
little less excited
yes.
about it.
His so far through his career success, I'm totally good with. Totally good with how his career has gone in the success route of it, and I root for him. It's great. Cynthia Freeland, Art, how do you think this game goes against the Panthers? On paper, it seems like an easier win, but I've heard that Carolina Panthers are approaching this game as an organizational turning point and an opportunity to show first-year head coach, some free agent signings, some other guys that, hey, we're going to be on the right path if we can beat the Super Bowl champs. And the Chiefs just lost their first game. So is this a scary game for the Chiefs, and what do you think happens?
What? Is Mr. Tepper playing? I mean, like I think it's smart to try to approach it that way. And
Right.
I don't think there's anyone there that's like, hey, I think it's going to be anything less than a win is going to be, I think looking respectable, meaning at least scoring once maybe could be, I don't know what that means from like you're treating it as an organizational turning point. That just feels like you're setting yourself up for,
I think potentially organizational turning point that, hey, this is a chance for us, at least selling it to the players. Hey, we've got a couple of wins and now we're playing the Super Bowl champs coming off a bye. We can win and we can show that we're different. These last 2 wins mean something for us. I don't know. I mean, it's all the psychological part of it to go up against a team where you're double-digit dogs, at home against the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions with Patrick Mahomes. So,
yeah, I think this is the first game we see a nice strong cover by the Chiefs. I'm not in any, like, to me this is an interesting game. Like, I'm not disparaging the Panthers. It is the NFL. Anything could happen. But I think that when I look at what the Panthers, what they're working with, I think that they're in the fortunate position of having that nice win against the Giants. Chuba Hubbard had a really nice, a very nice game right after signing a contract that was pretty hefty. I don't think this is the moment where they have it. Like, I don't think this is an organizational turning point. If you're requiring a win for that to happen, I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. But I think it's a nice, strong Chiefs win, and I think we see some interesting. Some interesting stuff from their defense, meaning they're getting a little healthier on defense. They're trying some new things, but I'm not worried.
Okay,
I don't mean to be mean. I feel like I'm being mean, but I'm not. But they've just got a longer way to go, and I think they're actually better off if they perhaps worry less about winning some games and more about evaluating the talent on their roster so they can figure out how to, in the offseason, make the changes that they need to actually have an organizational turning point. But that's another story.
Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. Great stuff as always, Cynthia. Always enjoy it. Love our conversations. Enjoy the football, and we will talk next week.
Absolutely. Have a great one.
Yes, you too. There's Cynthia Freeland. Great stuff from her. NFL Network analytics expert. There was about 15 other things that I wanted to ask her about. So it's always like I always come up with like 15 bullet points, and I'm like, we'll get to those. Like I'll try to speed along. We'll get to, but never, never do that. Like I wanted to have a running back conversation with her. She mentioned Chuba Hubbard, Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon has been the MVP for the Houston Texans. Derrick Henry, is an Offensive Player of the Year candidate there in Baltimore and changing the way that they're running their offense. Like. We're talking about Pacheco, coming back for the Chiefs. Like the running back is making a comeback and how valuable they are to teams.
And somebody had a stat of like all the running backs combined that the Cowboys turned down in the offseason. It was like Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon was one of them. There was a couple other ones, but basically they have no running game in a league that's flipping to more run dominant, and you're seeing how the season's going.
And you know what? Joe Mixon from Cincinnati to Houston.
Tony Pollard. My bad. You can throw Tony Pollard
Tony
in that
Pollard
mix.
to Tennessee. Yeah, Tony Pollard
wasn't,
from Dallas
wasn't
to Tennessee.
this year, but
still, yeah.
They
Tony
could have
Pollard,
signed him.
Yeah, they could have signed him. And, again, Joe Mixon goes from Cincinnati to Houston, and he's been the MVP of that offense. Without Joe Mixon, I don't know where the Houston Texans would be right now. I know where the Bengals are without Joe Mixon, as having that steady, reliable ground game to hand it off to instead of Chase Brown and Zach Moss. Not Zach Moss anymore. He's out for the season, but you get the point. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. We'll hear from Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Drew Tranquill, and Juju Smith-Schuster. More so next. very quickly. So we will try to catch up on some breaks there. I do want to correct something from earlier, and I feel terrible about it. And there have been some texts that have come in on the text line, but mainly I feel bad because my brother's disappointed in me. It's Cole Hauser, not Tom Hardy, that is in Good Will Hunting. Cole Hauser from Yellowstone.
Of course.
Yes, I know.
You dumbass.
I know, I agree. And
Either one I would have taken.
right, but Dylan is the perfect Cole Hauser.
I have no idea.
Because Dylan's
I've
dream
seen
job
neither.
would be Cole Hauser in Yellowstone.
I've seen neither
The guy
of
who's
these.
running the ranch and killing people?
Yep.
Dylan's perfect life. He runs the ranch. He takes care of things. He kills people when
I don't
need
like
to be
that
killed.
part. I don't like that part.
Do what you got to do, man. Juju Tranquil and Drew Smith-Schuster. Juju Smith-Schuster, Drew Tranquil, Patrick Mahomes, and Andy Reid.
I think you mean Schuster-Smith.
Schuster-Smith, Drew Schuster-Smith Tranquil will be at the podium, and they'll be talking about a little Juju that they can get
and
back.
Drew.
That's exactly. Why isn't he Drew?
By the way, Drew Smith, former Mizzou basketball player, having a nice little NBA resurgence this year.
Good for him. Good for him. I'll take your word for it on that one.
I was thinking of Drew's.
Yeah, that's
Uncle.
you should.
Uncle Drew.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll hear from Andy Reid, we'll hear from Patrick Mahomes, we'll hear from Drew Tranquill, and we'll hear from Drew. I'd be interested to hear what Drew Tranquill has to say about Josh Allen's comments on that fourth down play, because it was Drew Tranquill that was in zone, and then as I think it might have been Shakir that crossed his face, and then he turned and ran with him, and then Josh Allen went right by Drew Tranquill to pick up the first down. Like,
are they putting him on so he can answer all the questions? They're like, hey, Drew, is that game on you?
No, I don't think it was on him. It was just that they show man so often in third and fourth down and shorts that Josh Allen said this is what they do. They run man coverage, tight man coverage in these short downs, and they blitz. This time they dropped into a zone and didn't blitz, and I said, oh, bleep, that these routes are not going to work. One of those routes was being covered by Drew Tranquill, in the zone. Like, his thoughts on, like, you guys, according to Josh Allen, you guys had the perfect play call on at that. And you killed that play, except for a great player made. Like, I don't even know what he would say to that. You know what I mean? Like, even if there's, like, a correct way to ask a question that wouldn't be like, why'd you guys blow it, But I just thought that's a really interesting takeaway, because it is a superstar quarterback doing what Patrick Mahomes does, a superstar quarterback. Yeah. Their defense was a perfect call to beat this play, and yet I still won at a crucial moment when we had to have the first down. And I picked up the first down with my legs, a 26-yard touchdown run, and an iconic run for Josh Allen. And, it'll be on his Hall of Fame reel, and as it should. It was a big moment in the game and a big moment in the season. And it'll help define the season. If the Bills get the number 1 seed, that play is going to be, shown a lot, especially if the Chiefs-Bills meet again. It'll be a play that's
that would be the play
again.
that's, yeah.
We'll see it a lot. Nick Jacobs had some interesting stats from Next Gen Stats coming out of that game. This is where I wonder how much the second cornerback matters, but it says Josh Allen targeted an out-breaking route on 43% of his pass attempts against the Chiefs. He was 14 of 17 for 122 yards on out-breaking routes. That's interesting. So that sideline, that out-breaking route going from the numbers to, or hash numbers to the sideline, and he was 14 of 17 on those particular plays.
That's not the tight ends up the middle. That's the opposite.
Exactly. Yep. And the Chiefs blitzed 38% of the time, 38% of dropbacks on Josh Allen. He was 8 of 16. He had 108 yards, a touchdown, and an interception when they blitzed Josh Allen 37.8% of the time. Here's Andy Reid.
All right. Everybody will go today for practice as far as the injuries go. Look forward to the challenge of playing the Panthers. They're playing real good football right now, and well coached, and they've got good players. So they're playing, like I said, they're coming off 2 good wins. Anyways, by that time, yours.
When it comes to Isaiah, how much do you foresee him playing on Sunday if he is?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see on both those two, Charles and him, kind of go through the practice, see where we're at this week, and we'll go from there. But just have to see, day by day type thing.
Do you sense it's easier to reach the guys about the details and urgency after a loss than it might be after you keep finding ways to win, and just in terms of how you can get that across to them?
Yeah, I think the guys have been receptive all the way through, so I wouldn't say that. We've got a couple things we got obviously have to fix, so we'll keep working on those.
Maybe at some point Pacheco will be back, and I'm just wondering what the potential for Kareem and Isaiah in the same backfield would be, just how you could employ both of them.
Yeah, we'll find a way. Both of them are good players, so we'll find a way to get both of them in if and when that takes place. So, but that's a good problem to have.
How's Isaiah been through? He seems like one of those guys who wants to just get back and go. You guys had to kind of keep him back a little bit for his own good, maybe. How excited would he be if he?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's a spark plug now emotionally. He's something that way, and he's worked his tail off to get to the point that he's at now, and so we've got to keep an eye on him that way. He would have played 3 weeks ago, if he had his choice, but that's sometimes how it goes. I appreciate that mentality. That's what's helped him, like I said, get to this point.
You don't imagine either of those two guys did much in practice last week, but how did they look to you with what they did?
Yeah, both of them took all the scout team reps, so they did a nice job, and I thought I got some productive work.
Anything stand out to you defensively about the Panthers as you guys get ready for them? I know they've struggled winning some games this year, but they must have some good things about them too.
Yeah, so offensively, they obviously have a good running back and a good quarterback. He's playing good football right now. Wide receiver, 17 is a heck of a player, and they've got a very good offensive line. So they're moving the football the last couple games, and then very well. And then defensively, it starts with their front. They've got a good defensive front. Their linebackers fly around. We know one of them from Denver, Jules. So he knows that defense, and he's the one that's kind of heading things up there from that standpoint. And then their secondary, they got two good corners and two good safeties. They just got 20 back, so they have a lot of trust in him, and he's a good football player.
Andy, I know we've asked you before about the deep passes to Worthy. I just wonder from your standpoint, before the ball is ever released on those plays, is there anything you're noticing about Patrick's footwork or some of the offensive line, the way the pocket is, that is maybe somewhat inconsistent that can lead to those disconnections?
Yeah, there are things, little things here and there. It could be him. It could be not being able to see it. Just where the way the defense is playing it, whether it's possible pressure, situation there. So it's been a variety of things, but it will happen. It'll click here. And he sure had a nice game, though. He was positive in that last game.
Andy, you mentioned some of the younger guys was a learning experience for them on Sunday, and then obviously on Monday you reiterated that. But after you've reviewed film with those young guys, what are the lessons learned, and how much are they willing to get back into it and learn some lessons from the future?
Yeah, the guys, listen, our attitude is great. Those guys have been, they want to get better. They want to learn. It's always been that way. So since they've been here, and that game, good football team, gives you that experience. So you take and you learn from it and you move on. I mean, I'm not going to go. I can't go through everything there, but as far as that, but they're receptive to it, and the best part is they'll go try it. So that's the important part.
I was wondering just the concept of, the Bills play a little bit more man, have moderate success. Now, how much does that factor into game planning, just considering teams like to copy each other, or is it more so you just focus on what the Panthers are doing and deal with it that way, or is it kind of a combination of all those things?
Probably a combination, but we're trying to focus in on them. That's where it's happening, and they're improving as they go along. They're coming off a bye week, so they're going to be fresh and ready to go. And so we tried to hone in. We've got good coordinators there, and so the schemes are sound, and you got to make sure you spend the time exhausting yourself on that, and then the techniques and fundamentals of their players. So you're right there.
Andy, where would you say Hollywood Brown is potentially in this opportunity to return this year?
Making very good progress. I can't tell you time when he'll be back, but he's another one that is excited to get back out here and get going. So I appreciate the way he's approached this whole thing.
Coach, I know like last week you coached against Sean. You've known him for a long, long time. New coach this week. It's his rookie year. You know anything about him? You've ever been around him? Or how do you kind of get a feel for what someone's program's all about?
I don't really know him, but I know where he's come from. I've had a chance to meet him and talk to him and that at the owner meetings. Sharp guy. I think he's doing a heck of a job down there. Looks like the guys believe in what he's saying. So they're blind heart.
Thanks, Coach.
There's Andy Reid, the head coach press conference presented by Greengrass Cattle Company. You can buy their 21-day dry-aged, grass-fed, grain-finished farm-to-table beef from their Weston store or online at greengrasscattleco.com. Brought to you by Robert Brogdon's Olathe Buick GMC, offering unbeatable deals and a massive inventory of over 300 new Buick and GMC vehicles. Shop now at robertbrogdon.com. You are listening to Sports Radio 810 WHB Kansas City. And he said, Hollywood Brown, very good progress. Don't know when, but excited to get back. That was one of the last things he said there, which reminded me of the clock emoji that Hollywood Brown tweeted out yesterday about 1:30.
Well, he just letting everyone know what time it was.
Game time. Whew.
Or maybe he got a watch.
I believe Patrick Mahomes is up now.
Patrick, when you go back and review everything from the Buffalo game, I'm sure you saw a lot of good, but what did you see that you guys need to improve upon going forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's just, I think, a couple plays here and there kind of changed the momentum of the game. If you look at the throw to Xavier down the sideline, or even throw in the third quarter on the second down where I hit Trout, I could probably hit Noah if I just wait on the progression. Just little plays like that are what make the difference in a big game, and so just stuff that you have to go back, look at, learn from, and try to get better at.
Patrick, what's the difference in mindset just from all these games where you find a way to now this time you didn't, and the sense of, I don't know if it's urgency that you alluded to the other day, but what is it that changes in your mind after that?
I think just having like you said, a sense of urgency from the beginning of the games. I feel like offensively we can be better at the way we start and the way we play throughout the entire game, because you can tell whenever, a lot of times in the fourth quarter when we need a score, we go right down the field and score. And so if we can play the entire football game like that, it won't put us in these situations where in one-score games at the very end.
Do you think it's easier to get everybody's attention when there's a consequence with a loss?
I mean, yeah, we have a lot of veterans, so that they know what we need to do, but obviously a loss kind of heightens everybody's attention to detail. I think that'd be the biggest thing. But at the same time, we know it's a long season. You lose a football game here and there, but you try to learn from that and try to be better the next week.
Patrick, Noah Gray has one of the highest catch percentages in the league. When you throw it to him, it's almost always completion. What is it about him that allows for that?
Yeah, he does everything the right way, and he's learned a ton from Trav, and so he knows how to kind of work within the rules of the offense and get himself open. And he's just a guy that's going to be in the right spot. So as a quarterback, if you're going to give him the football, he's going to make the play happen. And so he's not going to talk a lot. He's going to come to work, do his job. But at the same time, those are the guys you want on your team because you know that he's going to do whatever it takes to win.
Pop doesn't seem to be the type of player who eases back into things. What are your expectations for Pacheco when he comes back?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. I think it's going to be us trying to hold him back because he's a guy that wants to be out there as much as possible and he wants to play. But same time, he wants to win and he knows the long-term goal that we have. And our goal is to get him back as quickly as possible, but at the best time for him and his body, so that we can have him for the long haul. And so whenever that is, I know he'll be ready and he'll be that Energizer bunny that everybody loves to see.
In your years, you've obviously developed a relationship with Beach. Brings in a receiver, Thornton, to the practice squad. What do you like about his potential?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in season, haven't watched a ton of film on him, but just from the highlights that I have seen, I mean, a ton of big playability. Someone that is a big frame. I didn't realize how tall he was until he got in the building. I'm excited to see him on the practice field working, and I'm sure guys like Carson and them will give him chances downfield, and we'll get to see that speed. And so a lot of talent, a lot of ability, and I think it'll be good to get him worked in within the offense and see what he can do.
When you guys have your script to start a game, and you said like the first drive, you had the interception. When you get back, now you're down 6-0. You go right back to the script. You have to make adjustments. So does it kind of just mess up the plan you guys had?
Not necessarily. I mean, interceptions are always kind of bumping the road because you don't want to have those. But at the same time, I think Coach Reed does a good job of going back to it, going back to the way we want to go about a game. I mean, obviously with them scoring from the interception, you have to try to find ways to get back in the end zone and keep the game close, keep it tied, or whatever that is. And so I don't think it does much. I mean, I know for me, it's just you keep firing. I mean, you don't want to throw interceptions, but at the end of the day, once they happen, there's nothing you can do about it. You just learn from it and try to be better the next time.
Coach mentioned a couple weeks ago, I think it was the Monday night game, it was only 3 rushes for Kareem in the first half, and kind of.
I mean, I know for me, it's just you keep firing. I mean, you don't want to throw interceptions, but at the end of the day, once they happen, there's nothing you can do about it. You just learn from it and try to be better the next time.
Coach mentioned a couple weeks ago, I think it was the Monday night game, it was only 3 rushes for Kareem in the first half, and kind of got back to it in the third quarter, and maybe didn't run as much as you guys maybe would have liked this time around. When you're in the middle of the game, I mean, Are you thinking about how many times we've run it and passed it and all that kind of stuff when you guys are on the headsets and talking on the pads over there on the sideline, or just how does that kind of work during the game?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, just obviously we didn't run a ton of plays this last game. With the interception kind of stalling out that drive quickly, and then kind of how the flow of the game was, we probably threw the ball more than we might have wanted to from the beginning of the game. I thought Coach did a good job of getting the run game back going as the game went on, which opened up other things as well. And I think more than anything, just having with the offensive line that we have and those three guys in the middle, running downhill is hard for defenses to account for. And so if we can run the ball downhill, it opens up everything else. And I think Kareem and all those guys do a great job of doing that. So you got to have to play the flow of the game. You talk about it on the sideline, but I mean, all of us have full belief on whatever coach calls, we're going to go out there and execute.
What are your early thoughts here on Carolina and the challenge that they present?
Yeah, I mean, first off, great defensive coordinator. I played against him when he was in Denver. Very smart, very intelligent, and he kind of gets his guys in the right position. And they have a lot of talented players. I think you've seen that these last few weeks is that they play hard, and they're playing better football as the season goes on. And so it'll be a great challenge for us going there to play them. They're coming off 2 wins and a bye, so they're going to be hungry. And so it'll be a great opportunity for us to go out there and try to find a way to get a win.
Bye.
Just with Xavier, Andy referred to this a little bit, and you have too. Just little things on each of the deep connections that are so close to happening. In your mind, what are the commonalities, or what are the things that are just so close that you should be able to get through?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've seen as the season's gone on that he's playing faster. He has more confidence. It's about me being on the same page as him. And I mean, I can sit here and we can practice it all we want, but until we start doing it in the game, there's nothing much more that I can really say about it. But I'm excited for it. I believe it's going to start happening. And once it starts happening, the offense is going to really take off.
And do you agree with, is that the right thing, that each play has been just a little bit different?
Yeah, they're all different type of plays. Some of them he's the first read, some of them it's kind of an alert type of read. But I think more than anything, when you look at the film, you see him getting open, you see him utilizing his speed, and then now it's about me making the throws where he can score touchdowns. And we score those touchdowns, like I said, it changes the entire ball game.
We'll go last three: Nick, Nate, and Steve. Go ahead, Nick. Patrick, for the guys that haven't been here, the rookies and some of the other young guys that haven't been on these runs, how do you kind of help them as a leader ramp up to this point of where the standard is come playoff time?
Yeah, no, this is kind of the point where you get to start taking off. You get to start kind of building. I mean, you want to do it all season long, but it's a long season. And as we kind of get to this back stretch, you want to be playing your best football going into the playoffs. And so as you get close to Thanksgiving and everything like that, you want to start showing progression and stuff that we've worked on throughout the year. And I feel like we're close to doing that, but we want to keep building and keep getting better so we're playing our best football at the end of the season.
Patrick, how much do you think that first half for Xavier can be momentum for the rest of the season, given beyond just the deep balls, but obviously interworking and getting mixed into the offense and obviously non-deep ball moments?
Yeah, I think more than anything is you saw the confidence in that he was playing with, which you could tell that he has more confidence within himself and what he can do within the offense. And whenever he's playing confident, not thinking, he's playing fast, and it's hard for people to account for how fast he is. And so I'm excited for him. I thought that was a good jump-off point. We got to keep him more involved in the offense throughout the second half. But at the same time, I think that's going to help the offense go.
Steve?
Patrick, you mentioned offensive line. There's no secret your line both have struggled just a little bit. Do you find it being harder for you to be more patient when you know that they've had those struggles?
No, I think that's on me more than anything. I think even if you look at the first interception, if I really just, even though it wasn't open, if I just sit in the pocket and I run up in the pocket, I don't get kind of slung where I throw the ball over the top of Noah. I hit Noah in stride, and it's a big play. And so that's just something that I have to continue to work on, is being able to settle in those spots in the pocket where I can make those throws, not forcing myself to run or scramble too fast. And then whenever I do need to scramble, I got to be smart with the football and make plays. And I thought I had good points of that during the game, but obviously not enough. So I'll continue to work on that throughout the season, and so that we can, like I said, play our best football at the end of the year.
Good. Thanks, guys. Thanks, bro.
All right, there's Patrick Mahomes, and sort of interesting him talking about, sitting in the pocket, being patient, not being patient. He's got to be better about that, trusting the protection. He said if he'd have just waited for Noah Gray to come open, then, he didn't have to step up in the pocket, and instead he stepped up in the pocket, and the guy sort of slung him down while he was throwing, and then he said, he would have thrown it accurately if it wouldn't have been for him, stepping up in the pocket like that, they could have had that connection, that conversion that was there. And so, it's sort of interesting him talking about that, because when on Monday, people were discussing the frustrations with Mahomes throwing that ball and throwing that interception. And my point was, without watching the All-22, that said, well, I've got a bigger issue with Mahomes not just simply throwing it to Kelsey, who was wide open, for a little 5-yard gain. But after watching the All-22 yesterday, I said, I understand why he didn't do that, because as he looked at Kelsey, 3 guys went to Kelsey, and Noah Gray was about to spring wide open. And I understand why he then read it that way, and early on in the game, he trusts his pocket a little bit more. Case in point, first possession of the second half, he brought up 2 plays in this press conference. He said a couple of things that we missed on. That pass to Xavier, and he said, or the pass to Trav later on, when if I'd have held it a little bit longer, Noah was coming wide open. So I went back and looked at that. That was the first possession of the second half. It was 2nd down and 3. First play of the second half after the Chiefs' defense got a 3 and out. They come out there. Kareem Hunt runs for 7 yards. You've got 2nd down and 3. Patrick Mahomes takes the snap, feels a little pressure, fires it to Kelsey. He had a little more time.
Was it the 2-yard gain?
2-yard gain.
Yeah.
Then the 3rd and 1, they got stopped. He had a little more time. If he waited a half second longer, the defenders run into each other, and Noah Gray is unguarded 15 yards down the field with the closest guy like 10 yards behind him that's catching his balance from getting hit. Noah Gray can catch that turn up field or even catch it for a first down. But early on in the game, he trusted protection, and he got burned. Later on in the game, I'm not trusting protection. I'm hitting Kelsey. He's open right there. Hit Kelsey. Let's keep it rolling. He'll catch it, get the first down. It's only 3 yards. I think that's where you get into sort of that game flow.
Sure.
And if those plays were flipped, if that play on 2nd down and 3 was the first play of the game or whatever, and he trusted it, I think it's a big gain, but it wasn't. Here's Drew Tranquil.
Maybe you're a little bit differently this week. Generally speaking, how do you feel like the messaging has been of how you guys can maybe perform better this coming week?
I feel like it's been good. I feel like we're all on the same page. We know we got to execute better. It was a tough loss against a really good team, and we got to bounce back this week against a hot Carolina team.
It's a different looking team, obviously. The Bills, where they stand in the AFC and all that. It's been a tough go for Carolina, but as you mentioned, they're playing better. They've had an off week. What are the dangerous parts of facing a Carolina team this week?
Well, they have a ton of moving pieces, and what I mean by that, it seems like their quarterback situation was fluid. They've got a lot of young pieces, some rookies at the receiver position. They've traded away some players, and so when you're trying to build a good team and a good culture, it takes time and guys playing together for a long time. They've certainly played better the last 2 weeks, and I think they're starting to gel, starting to mesh a little bit. You're seeing those young guys get comfortable. They brought some good pieces in on the offensive line in the offseason, so it's a good group personnel-wise, and we'll have to be on our X's and O's.
It's like to run the ball too, right?
Yeah, they do.
And the reports are the rookie is going to play for the first time this week. Maybe someone you guys haven't seen, right? The kid from Texas. What sort of thing would that add to the mix? This point in the season, facing someone that you can't even see on tape.
Yeah, we know how good 30 is, and obviously got a much deserving contract extension. He's been playing well for them. And then, like you mentioned, the rookie, we'll see if he's out there on Sunday. 2nd-round pick, high draft pick. I'm sure he's got a lot of talent. We watched a little bit of his college tape. He seems explosive, able to make good cuts, good in the screen game. And so we'll have our hands full.
Their quarterback can be elusive too, but is it elusive in a different way than Josh Allen, or how would you, or is it elusive quarterback and elusive quarterback?
I think that's a good point. I think they're obviously 2 different body types. Bryce is a little smaller in stature, maybe a little quicker than Josh is, but Josh is obviously bigger, has a really strong stiff arm, and it's tough to bring down from that standpoint. But, a guy like Josh Allen, you're trying to, stay high and harass and do everything you can there. A guy like Bryce can duck, get underneath you, and so it's just a different approach when you're approaching each of those different quarterbacks.
You guys, it's a long season, we know that. We're in the dog days, I guess, now, getting near the holidays and all that. And the team has been so professional, Coach said, every week you come in the same way. Does it feel different coming in after the first loss of the year this year?
I got to disagree. I don't feel the dog days. We love it out here. We love it. And the sun's out, and it's a beautiful day in Kansas City. And I think we just have a ton of people that love to play football here. And they've done that through building the team the right way. And so we're excited to be here, be 9-1, top the AFC with a chance to host playoff games at home. And so we're looking at Carolina, man, trying to get this win and get back on track.
In a loss, not everyone's going to have the best game. How do you see tangible ways that defensively you guys build each other up as you go into the next week?
I think we just know we have a, a high ability to execute. And you look at that first drive, there's 2 third downs where we played good first, second down defense, had a chance to get off the field, and they were able to keep the drive alive. I don't think people are talking enough and giving enough credit to the Bills for executing. And you just look at the throw Josh Allen made that we challenged with Amari Cooper. Nick is right in his face, hitting him. He almost has to short arm it and puts it like on a dime to Amari down the sideline. NJ was right there in coverage. And so they executed at a high level and made plays down the stretch that we didn't make. And I think that's why they got the win.
You looked pretty fired up when there was a little altercation involving the offense over there on the sideline, and you came out. Would 19 or 20-year-old Drew Tranquill got joined into that? And is that something you guys will remember if you play him again?
I mean, things get chippy when you're playing teams that you've played multiple times, you have a history with. I don't think 19 or 20-year-old or 28, 29-year-old Drew would get out there on an NFL field without a helmet. I don't think that's a smart thing to do. Those guys are big and strong. But, tempers flare, and at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of competitors, trying to win. And they're a good team. We're a good team.
You mentioned the third downs. They actually do well in third downs. The last third down of the game, you guys stopped them. Did you think, right away, they're going to go on fourth down? Do you think they were going to field goal instead? But what was just the kind of thought in the huddle at that point?
No, I knew they were going to go for it. They weren't going to let Patrick have a chance.
You guys have to be prepared for that basically all the time. I mean, it was been 3 downs, but a lot of times because of who you guys have on offense, you got to feel like you could have been 4 downs.
Yeah, I mean, you can go back to the Buccaneers game and the decision, do they go for 1 or 2 there at the end? I'm sure, Sean McDermott and those guys. I mean, we have a history of playing them. You look at the 13-second game where Patrick's able to go down and get in field goal range. I just think if you look at them and what they've been able to do on 3rd and 4th down, they have a 4th and 2. Are their odds better securing that first down, potentially running the clock down? Worst case scenario, having to kick a field goal. Or best case scenario, running the clock out? Are their chances better doing that, or is it kicking the field goal and giving the ball back to the best quarterback in the NFL with, 2:20 and the 2 timeouts and the 2-minute warning? I think everybody knew. We knew they were going to go for it, and they out executed us.
Drew, time and time again, people talk about how the Chiefs take everybody's best shot and kind of a litmus test for some teams. How are you going through that last year? How do you kind of battle through that mentally as they wait on those type of runs?
Last one.
Well, having played the Chiefs for 4 years, I know what it feels like to be on the opposing side. You're excited when you get a chance to play the defending champions, and certainly you feel that energy. Teams tend to come out very emotional against us and have good game plans. And at the end of the day, you just have to settle in. You have to play your game. You have to rise to each day. I mean, it's hard to go into an NFL game and not be excited and be thrilled about it. It doesn't matter who you're playing. All these guys are professionals, and so we'll have to do that again this week.
Thanks, Drew.
All right, y'all. See you.
All right, there's Drew Tranquill. Yeah, he's been on the other side of facing off against the Super Bowl champions or defending Super Bowl champions, and what that means for the opposing team. Should remind you the quarterback press conference brought to you by Xfinity X1. Easily search across live TV, on-demand sports, and your favorite streaming apps to find the best way to watch what you love. Xfinity X1 brought to you by Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park, the only Volvo dealership in Kansas City where luxury and safety meet. Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park at 78th and Metcalf, or at premiervolvocarsoverlandpark.com. And also brought to you by GEHA. You could be on the 50 at GEHA Field for the official coin toss at a Chiefs home game this season. Enter to win at chiefs.com/GEHA. GEHA, the proud partner of the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll hear from Juju Smith-Schuster coming up in a little bit. He had a big catch and run, breaking some tackles, being the big-bodied yak that he is.
Power slot.
Yeah, I like the power slot. Right.
Well, no, but he is. I mean, he's that power slot role where it used to be the Edelmans or the Danny Amendolas of the world. But now kind of Cooper Kupp's a lot bigger than I think folks think he is. He was kind of the first guy. You look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's thick. Juju Smith-Schuster's thick. Rashee Rice is a thicker guy.
Dude, man.
That slot role is turning more into that power slot role, which is, and Juju fits that role very nicely.
Yeah, and I do wonder, like, the playing time for Juju Smith-Schuster returning coinciding with DeAndre Hopkins playing fewer snaps. Are those things connected, or some people are throwing out the possibility that, well, DeAndre Hopkins played fewer snaps against the Bills than he had since he showed up to the Chiefs. Maybe they just didn't want to show what they had in DeAndre Hopkins to the Bills until the playoffs, and so you hold him back a little bit and play a little more Juju. Also, you keep DeAndre fresher as the season goes along. Here's Juju.
Juju, what kind of attitude have you seen in the building this week? Still 9-1, it's a loss, whatever. You guys kind of working the same way you always work?
Yeah, we just go about it, our preparation for the week, just practice hard, attention to details, and for us, from that game, it just felt like, that's something that we can learn from on our side of the ball and stuff like that. So, yeah.
What sort of lessons do you think you guys did learn on offense this week?
I think for us, just being able to come out, in the second half and just, when our defense played very, very well, we need to come out there and, execute. Those are some critical drives that, putting opportunities for us to put, points on the board.
Juju, over the last few weeks, how bad was the hamstring injury, and then how did you feel coming back?
It feels great. It's a great staff here taking care of me. They have a nice little program for me, being able to get me back out there and, being able to be out there with my boys and just to play in that atmosphere was, felt good to be back.
It seemed like your snaps were limited. Are you feeling 100% even stemming?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Juju, with Xavier Worthy from the time he got here till now, where have you kind of seen the biggest growth for him in this offense?
Man, that guy, he can do it all, man. He can, go deep, open up the field for a lot of us, and, he also can play short game too. So, as you can see, he's starting to get, rolling and moving. So it's nice to see that, he's doing his thing and excited to see what more is coming for him.
And for you early on when you were a rookie in your first year or two, how long did it take to kind of some of the finer points to get those down in the league from muscle to radar?
Yeah, he's a smart kid. It's funny to say he went to Texas and we made him have the same coach in college. So, coming from like Sarkisian, coming from his offensive team has helped, him a lot, has helped me a lot. And, he pretty much gets it all. I think the biggest difference for him this year compared to his years playing football is that this season is a lot longer, so being able to take care of your body and longevity.
And having had the same coach, you guys can kind of speak a language.
Yeah, we always talk about Sark, man. He's a good dude, good coach. We always talk about, Texas and USC ball.
This week, another former Patriots receiver in the building. What can you tell us about him and his opportunity to kind of blend in here?
Yeah, obviously he has a great opportunity to come here for Taekwondo. I think he's a great dude. Play with him in New England. Young dude, loves to work. Another guy who can stretch the field too. And you'll see him out there, doing his thing. So I'm just excited. He's here to be in the building. Excited just to work and just get it going.
A couple of those things, like when you're young, like Xavier this year, when you make that jump from college to pro, obviously it's 2 feet down, not 1 feet. Kind of that awareness on the sideline. On those longer throws, it seems like it's a lot easier if you're just throwing outs that are 8 yards. You can practice that a bunch. You don't have a lot of time to practice 40-yard throws and the toe tap stuff, right? How do you get that part down?
Yeah, it's just repetition. I think for Xavier, being one of the fastest guys in the league, running at that much speed and having to stop on the sideline is not a lot of people can do that. Not a lot of people can get up to that top speed and to track the sideline. But for him, like I said, it's just a repetition of just working at it every single day. And as a young guy, I've had those moments, and I'm in year 8, where you can't really see where the sideline is at when the ball's in the air. So I think for him, he's getting it down, and I'm not worried about him at all. He's a guy that's gonna fix it, correct it, and get back to it.
You see the right things from him as a young player when something like that happens, right? Because that's the name of the game: make a mistake and learn from it.
Yeah, he's a guy that takes accountability too. Like he needs to work on that, and that's something that what's great about him, that he's always looking to get better, move forward. Like I said, he's not a guy that knows it all. He's a guy that's a sponge who's trying to soak in as much information as he can. And like I said, I think that's something that he knows that eventually that's something he's working on.
Last couple.
How do you balance? You had the huge game against New Orleans. How do you balance being somebody who can catch the ball a lot and put up numbers, but also knowing there's other people and the ball being spread around. So I guess kind of wanting the ball, but also knowing kind of where you fit into the offense.
Honestly, man, like, being in this offense, anyone can have a game, at any moment. I think, for myself, just being out there with the guys, whatever I can do to help out and help win, whether that's me catching the ball, whether me blocking down the field, opening up the play. So whatever that sees fits, I pretty much just, leave it, in the coach's hands, and, that's it.
What's it been like for you working with DeAndre?
It's been awesome, man. It's been cool. Growing up, a big Hop fan when he was in Houston, and being able to see him on the same team, he's a cool dude, man. Like that veteran mentality, that mind, the way he works, the way he goes about, his business. He's always learned something new from him, so it's pretty cool.
You guys have a good social media game. He's got a pretty good social media game too, though, right? D-Hop?
Yeah. I mean, he has a good following. I mean, like I say, he's been a guy that's been doing it for 12 years, so it's pretty cool.
Thanks, Juju.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, there's Juju Smith-Schuster, returned to action this past weekend, and will be out there against Carolina again. So we'll see how they do with that. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. More Zone right after this. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, heading up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. We talked some college football in the first hour with the college football playoff rankings, the latest coming out last night, and the conversation about hypotheticals of if Indiana loses this weekend, if Indiana wins this weekend.
And we all agreed there was no pushback from anyone somehow.
No, not at all. We were all on the exact same page with that, which will be fine because that'll be the same exact universal agreement if Indiana were to lose to Ohio State as to whether or not they belong or do not belong in the college football playoff. It'll be everybody on the same page, essentially saying the same thing. And that'll be great to have that unanimous consent.
Feels like we need another coffee bet at some point.
No, because I don't want to bet on what 13 different people in a room are going to say. Like, I'd rather bet on, like, a sporting event where I have a better idea of, like, I can judge, like, how this team is playing, that team's playing.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they've argued about in that room so far to this point versus how they may. Like, I have a good idea about how Kansas has played. Like, if I'm betting Kansas and Colorado, I got a good idea about how Kansas is playing, how Colorado's playing. I have no clue what they're talking about in that room as to why Indiana's number 5. And maybe it's until they lose a game, they're number 5. And if they lose a game, then let's look at the resume. But they haven't lost a game, so screw the resume right now. That's what I'm arguing for.
I'm in a coffee betting mood.
I know you've been you're in a coffee betting losing mood.
Well, because I keep losing the NBA, and every day I come in here, I go, I'm not going to bet NBA anymore.
Yeah.
And I did it again.
too.
I did it yesterday, and I'm not going to bet NBA anymore. And then I bet NBA today already for tonight. So
do you need like a sponsor? It's like when I'm getting ready to call my ex-girlfriend. Please, I'm going to text you before I call. I just don't want to call her. Please, it's like I'm about to bet NBA. Please, what can I do?
Number.
But I'm so close, guys.
There is
I
a
am
1-800 number for sure.
Okay, I'm betting $5. One of these is going to hit, and I'm going to make it all back, and it's going to be glorious.
What I would say is the best strategy is probably double up, catch up.
No, I don't do that. That seems dangerous.
If you bet $5, now bet 10.
No, what I'm going to do
$10
is
and $5 and lost them both. Now bet 15.
we're going to play a game of 21 in basketball. You, me, and Dylan, and we're going to bet $100 a person. And I like my chances. So does that work for you guys? We all in?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I'm in. I like mine as well. So, yeah.
Oh, let's go, Jason. You in?
No.
Dylan 1-on-1
for $100.
What's the bet again?
I don't know.
What's the bet again?
That me and Dylan have?
Yeah, what's the bet again right now?
What's
the $100 bet?
No, that's the $100 bet.
You
That's
said for $100.
That's 1-on-1 in basketball.
Oh, just 1-on-1 in basketball?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I'll do it.
You're in too?
Yeah. I mean, can we? I don't want to really, I don't want to tear my Achilles. Can we just do like a shooting contest?
Oh,
like
boo!
Free throw contest.
Boo!
I'll put some scratch on the free throw shooting contest. I'll do that.
I'm not trying to
3-point
have
contest
9 months
at
of
least.
rehab.
Yeah,
for
I know, right?
$100.
For $100, that doesn't make sense. That's not smart.
Well,
not a great ROI
okay,
there.
Hear me out. We'll videotape it for social, so that way if you get injured, we'll call it workman's comp. It's
I don't
not
think
like
it works that way.
It's not like in our job we need our legs. We sit down all day.
Yeah, but
you don't need an Achilles to talk sports.
Yeah, but
you don't have to be in shape to talk sports. Come on now.
How am I going to get to and from work? Am I going to Uber? Am I have my wife drop me off?
Well, just make sure it's your left, not your right one. You have 2 feet.
So make sure I tear my left. So now I need to go out of my way to tear my left Achilles and not my right.
Man, you guys are so negative about your bodies. You'll be
I
fine.
I know my body. I'm in tune with my body, Sterling. Okay, all right. I'm in tune with my body to the point that I know my Achilles ain't all that strong. All right. I'm in my mid-40s. Ask other guys who have been weekend warriors that are in their late 30s and 40s and have heard that pop. Okay? Ask those guys.
You're putting bad juju on me right now.
Well, we just heard good juju.
We did hear good juju. That was good juju.
Good juju a couple of years ago. He's been, okay juju so far. They needed a little more juju to beat the Bills, both in literal and figurative sense. Some things to go their way, but it didn't happen. But now they've lost, and I think there's more consensus about if this is good for the Chiefs or not in losing that game than there is about Indiana being in the college football playoff or not. I think pretty much across the league, it's like, I think this is a good thing for the Chiefs to lose. we'll see if it's a good thing.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that as it's been going on all week. Were we playing bad because of the undefeated season, or were we playing bad and having these close games because of all the flaws we've been pointing out this whole time versus an actual tightness that lived amongst the team? Because the goal has never been an undefeated season.
Yeah, I don't think the undefeated season had anything to do with them playing close or not.
Yeah.
I think a couple of those close games have been a little bit misleading. The Raiders game was not a one-score game, but it ended up being a one-score game. So a little misleading when you say,
I don't
they
think
won all
anyone
these
points to that game as the close one, though. I think
I don't disagree,
point
but when
to
they
the
say
Bengals, the
5 of the
Ravens.
7 or 7 of the 9 wins are all by one score, and it's like they beat the Raiders by 7. Early on in the season, those were the closer ones to where it's coming down to the last play. Ravens last play, Bengals last play, Falcons on the road with 2 different plays, one in the end zone.
Yeah.
Buccaneers, right?
We almost needed to say one score and team had possession at the end. The losing team had possession of the football with a one-score game. It wasn't, we made it a one-score game, and we have to do this.
But now you got to get the onside kick.
Yeah, we'd have to declare our onside kick. And then,
go down and score a touchdown, not a field goal with 12 seconds left. Yeah, it's not.
So, even San Francisco being down 16, it's like they go down and score, and if they get a 2-point conversion and get the onside kick and score and get the 2-point conversion, that's a tie game. Yeah, okay, well, that ended up being a 10-point game. It was one of the games in which it was not a one-point game, but it also wasn't a 10-point game. It was, they won by, it skews the point to where Bill Barnwell wrote the piece about the Chiefs and undefeated to that point, and the average margin of victory since the merger, the teams that started off 9-0 was 13.6. And the Chiefs have not had a game in which they've won by 14. They haven't even had one game by that margin of victory, which they haven't. But again, they had a 16-point lead. They had a 14-point lead, and it was a 13-point lead to the
Saints. What was the
13?
Saints?
It's 26-13. So it was a 13-point win. So
right.
they hadn't had a 13.6. They
I
had a
guess,
13-point win was their best. So they hadn't had
not even a 13.3.
Not even exactly.
Not a 1.
Or a 13.0 or a 13.333 repeating, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. They hadn't had that. But they did have a 14-point lead of the Raiders until, a minute. They had a 16-point lead against the 49ers until last part of the game. A little misleading from that standpoint. But, as I said last week, and, continue to reiterate it, either they'll start losing the close games or they'll win by more. They're not going to keep going week in and week out and winning these close games. The ball is going to bounce a different way every once in a while. And that's what happened in this game. Plays were made. The Chiefs have had the ability to make plays late, or other teams didn't make plays, whichever way you want to call it. Drew Tranquill wanted to make sure to point out the Bills made plays. Why are they not getting enough credit for that team making plays?
I think you and I have, though, by the way.
I
think we've and
take that, Drew.
That was my my takeaway for the game was the Bills had a great game plan. They were the better team. They played better in that particular game.
Josh Allen made plays constantly.
I'm not saying it's going to be the same result in the playoffs, but in that particular game, the Bills played better. The Chiefs didn't necessarily just keep shooting themselves in the foot. We didn't see a whole bunch of just disastrous plays. It was the Bills, I think, outplayed them. But when we look ahead, let's just say this Panthers game coming up. I know they're a bad team. Andy's trying to call, they're also a well-coached team. They're turning things around, some good players, fine. But what do you need to see in this game that maybe gives you more confidence going forward? Is there specific matchup,
Let's play solid football. No turnovers. I'd like to see him put pressure on Bryce Young and sack him.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that. Protection for Patrick Mahomes in the pocket, like whether it's a bad team or not. Like I want to see Patrick Mahomes take his 3 or 5 step drop and read the defense and go through the progression without then moving his feet around thinking that somebody's getting close to me and now I got to move and I've got to, oh, wait a minute, I'm moving, but actually that's not pressure, so now I can stop and then make this throw. Like I'd like to see a couple of series or a half, a quarter, where Mahomes just simply takes the snap, he's got pressure or he's got protection, he trusts the protection, the pocket forms around him, and he goes through his progressions and he feeds the open receiver because they have open receivers. This is not to where we're watching last year at times when we're going, ain't nobody open. Look at this play here. Who you throwing it to? Nobody's open. They got open guys.
Yeah.
The first play of the game, or the first throw of the game. Second play of the game was the interception. They had Kelsey open for a first down. But also, because of the scheme, they had Noah Gray coming wide open behind him, in which Mahomes waited for Noah Gray to come open. Trey Smith had a rough game. He got walked back into Mahomes. Jawan Taylor got beat. Mahomes had to move quickly. Trey Smith's guy that he was blocking is the one that reached out and grabbed Mahomes. Mahomes is trying to hit Noah Gray, who was open, who I think he was waiting for to come open because 3 guys reacted to go to Kelsey. Only he didn't have the protection. Fast forward to the third quarter, right out of half, you're looking at the tablet more. You're seeing what's going on. You also have a full half of feel for what you're getting from the pocket and the protection. And the first passing play for Mahomes on that one, 2nd and 3, after you run the football and Kareem Hunt picks up 7 yards. 2nd and 3, Mahomes takes his drop, has Kelsey open for a little 2-yard gain, has a guy on him, but feels a little pressure and immediately throws the ball to Kelsey. And Noah Gray pops wide open behind him. And then Patrick Mahomes mentions in the press conference that play specifically unprompted because he was asked about Xavier Worthy and his connection or lack thereof at times, and that play on the sideline when he said, yeah, that could have been a touchdown. But also missed opportunities like later in the game when I hit Trav for a short gain and I should have waited and trusted the protection and Noah Gray was open. Okay, so he had the protection that time, but he trusted it earlier in the game and it broke down. He didn't trust it that time, and it was a 3rd and 1 in which they got stopped because Kareem Hunt the first time all year didn't pick up that short yardage situation. Like
he
get into
should
those.
have time in this game.
Agreed. I want to see the protection actually hold up.
This is a game where, and Andy's not wrong, the secondary for the Panthers is decent. J.C. Horn, Xavier Woods has been around, Jordan Fuller. They got some guys in the secondary. Their best rusher is Jadeveon Clowney, who's been brutal this season. So you have Jadeveon Clowney, who's been brutal. You have Ashawn Robinson, who's solid but unspectacular. He has 3 sacks this year. Shy Tuttle, who's just a nose tackle. And then you have LeBron Ray, who has 1 sack as your other edge. This is a game where your offensive line should bounce back. That's, I think, what I want to see most, where I think we're on the same page here. Is I know they should dominate, but they better dominate, or else I'll have some concerns.
And I don't even know if, like, honestly, I don't know that I'm on the I don't know that I'm on the page of like better dominate. Like, go out there and play solid football, and if something happens here or there, like, do you dominate as a team, or the issues we're talking about if Spencer Schrader misses a couple of field goal attempts?
No, okay. When I mean dominate, I mean the offensive line.
Okay.
I mean the offensive line versus the defensive line.
Okay, we're on the same page.
Yeah, I don't mean the game.
My bad, yeah.
No, not the game. I mean I want to see 0 sacks. I want to see Mahomes with a clean pocket. I want him to get confidence and comfortable back there.
Yeah.
And this is the game to do it.
Yeah, we're on the same page with that. My bad. Because I just worry about, like, if they go out there and they play solid football and they win the game against the Panthers, and it's like, okay, they won 21-10. Well, that's not good enough. Why didn't you?
That's fine.
Why didn't you destroy the Panthers? And it's like, I don't want to get into the point of where they're winning games, and this is one that could very easily be a look ahead. Could very easily be where you go, you know what? It's an NFL football game. The other team is professional too. They got coaches. They've been preparing for this game for 2 weeks. This is the Super Bowl champs. This is the measuring stick for them. You just lost to the Bills. Undefeated season is gone. How much that may have mattered. Mahomes said, that was cool, but not our ultimate goal. You still have your ultimate goal of getting to the Super Bowl. So how do you respond then this week and fix and correct some of those mistakes against a clearly inferior opponent, but a rested opponent, and an opponent that's won 2 games in a row and feeling better about how they're playing? We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up at 1 o'clock, KSHB 41 sports director. Talk some football with him. Maybe some college football with him. Maybe complain a little bit more about the Royals and Matt Quatraro not winning Manager of the Year.
I'm over it.
That's what I wanted to do for 4 hours today, was just come on here and complain and moan and just be annoyed and annoying about Matt Quatraro and JJ Piccolo neither winning their prospective roles of the year.
Again, JJ is the one that gets my goat. I'm not.
What grinds my gears?
I'm okay with Q getting second. I'm not necessarily okay with him only getting two first place votes.
So you hate Matt Quatraro? Okay, now I get it. You think
I
he's
tried
a
so
scrubby
hard to
manager.
be non-biased that maybe I'm being like biased against the teams we cover.
Whenever you can turn the most unhittable closer into the most hittable closer by showing him 100 times before you needed to show him in the playoffs.
Well, playoffs don't count though, Dylan.
Playoffs.
I'm talking about Mr. Vote, you know.
No, I know playoffs don't count.
Voted on
they don't,
before
they don't.
voted
I know.
before vote did that, which could have lost some votes.
You know what?
For vote,
they gave him a vote of
getting
confidence.
the most votes to win Manager of the Year, which went to vote.
A vote of confidence.
Yeah. Yep. It was
Or lack thereof.
Who's on first?
No.
Jim Tomey. It's Jim Tomey.
What's on second? I don't know who's on third. Is it Thome? Jim Thome's there.
If it actually was who's the DH or pinch hitter, the correct answer actually would be Matt Stairs. Doesn't matter what team or what you're talking. It's just Matt Stairs.
It's Matt Stairs. He's the pinch hitter. He's the you need a left-handed bat off the bench. Stairsy. Go get Matt Stairs. Yeah. So and we'll see with MVP tonight. I don't think Bobby's going to win it. How about that? The Royals are going to get second place in MVP, second place in Manager of the Year, second place in Executive of the Year.
Second place in the AL Central.
Second place in the AL Central. Second place in the divisional round of the Yankees, specifically that one series. They got second place to the Yankees in that one specific series. To hell with the Guardians and Tigers.
At least we didn't have any players win awards that took away a year of service time that we very much needed in Paul Skeens' case. You see that? Where because he got the NL Rookie of the Year, he lost. Basically, now he's eligible for free agency in 2029 instead of 2030.
So they call him a Super 2? So I guess I didn't see that rule. My bad.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. I didn't see that rule.
So because he came in halfway through, he wasn't. But because he won a Rookie of the Year award, did.
Okay, so the Rookie of the Year made this season count.
Correct.
So what they did. So by keeping him down as long as they did, and maybe they did, maybe it was not as, maybe they could have had him come up like Wyatt Langford and start the season with the big league club, and maybe they wanted to manipulate time. So if they manipulated service time to then keep an extra year of Paul Skeens, which could cost them a PPI draft pick, after the first round, but then by him winning Rookie of the Year, it takes this entire year into a year accrued in Major League Baseball.
They still don't get
the PPI, which they would have got if they just started the season with the big league club.
Do you think that? Do you think that like the GM of the Pirates was sitting here going, he didn't play enough games? It's Jackson Merrill. Jackson Merrill's the guy you want.
I give Rookie of the Year to Jackson Merrill. Are you kidding me? Come on.
Look, he pitched 133 innings. It's Jackson Merrill's your man.
And then Jackson Churio, but Churio wasn't eligible.
Oh, I could go for some
PPI
churros.
Because Churio signed his contract before the season, right? Churio signed an extension before he ever made his Major League debut. I think that's part of the
that could be
the stipulations. That was one of those to where, wow.
He had a great season.
He needed to accrue 172 days of service time to be eligible for that free pick.
For the
but
PPI.
He didn't reach it because he was called up late, but then
Rookie of the Year counts this year as a well. Guess I missed that part. So Bob Hamlin winning Rookie of the Year, got a full year of service time. I didn't really ain't Angel Baroa this whole time. Did not realize that was I didn't know that was a rule. But you know what? Colton Cowser didn't win Rookie of the Year, and that means that the Orioles don't get a PPI, and the Orioles are picking ahead of the Kansas City Royals in the first round and the second round. And if they would have received a PPI, they would have had a pick in front of the Royals. So now the Royals are the only team with a PPI, which means they get the first pick directly after the first round. All of those comp picks and sandwich picks between the first and second round, the Royals get the first of all of those. sandwich picks by Bobby Witt Jr., finishing in the top 3 of MVP in the final year that he is PPI eligible to finish in the top 3 of MVP.
Thank you, Bobby.
Appreciate you, brother. Now Bobby Witt, and because they broke camp with Bobby Witt, they wanted the service time manipulation, and now it didn't matter because they signed him to a deal. So you didn't manipulate service time to get an extra year out of him because you've now signed him to a deal, and now you get an extra pick out of him, the 31st pick in the draft. So we'll take a time out, come back. More Zone next. Get into and discuss. You can't wait?
Can't wait. Can't wait. Bart Scott.
Bart Scott over here. How about that, huh? He cannot wait. KU State win. College basketball last night. Hunter Dickinson, just a walking double-double. And Coleman Hawkins lets fans know, chill, it's going to be good, even though I would grade my play as an F so far. But we'll get there. Just have a little patience.
Stop.
Right, Sterling, would you like to have patience?
I hate this bit.
It's Matt Derrick's favorite Guns N' Roses power ballad.
Civil War is so much better.
All right, welcome back here in the zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, Mick Schaefer in the studio with us until 1 o'clock. Mick, how the hell are you, man?
Listen, of all the days that I've been here, this is one of them.
That's
and
right.
we're here, and we're just, all the decisions we've made in life have led to this right here, us four.
A little
And
no
I
country.
question three of them. I question three of you.
A little no country for old men there. Flip of the
That's
coin.
it.
Flip of the coin. Like, no, it's not luck. There's nothing luck about this. Your entire life's choices and events have led to this moment right
I
here.
didn't fail
I'm
that
not-
math class. I would be
I thought you were going to talk about the book. That you enjoy the book.
an
for-
author.
No.
The book actually was incredible.
Really?
Of No Country for Old Men. It was
I bet
very
it
good.
was.
Yeah.
I bet it was.
I
Plenty, of,
liked
plenty of
the,
room for old men that read the book instead of watch the movie, is what you're saying.
I liked it when the actors read the book that was a script, and then they showed me how it was. That was what I liked.
Yeah.
It was
And then
awesome.
they acted it out on screen like a play.
And the three title leads were never in a shot together.
Holy
two
bleep.
of them were never in a shot together.
Wow.
Not once.
How do you pronounce that one guy's last name? Because in the
Bardem? Javier Bardem. Oh,
no,
the
Sugar or
Sugar.
It is Sugar. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I was pronouncing it. You know
That's
in your
how they
mind.
said it,
You know
yeah.
in your mind, and you're like,
Sugar. No, they said Sugar, I think, in the movie.
Yeah.
Was it Woody Harrelson in the hotel room?
Yeah, he called him
Okay.
Sugar, just like he was like he had the
some reason
kind of
I
the
thought that was
accent,
Tommy Lee.
whatever, and he was
Yeah.
just lazy with it. But
the last name
Sugar.
is pronounced Brolin.
Hmm.
Jones. Tell me, what pronounced the last name? Harrelson. How do you pronounce the last name of that guy? Harrelson. Woody. Brolin, Josh. All right, so there's that movie. 913. You don't know that those guys were actors, Sterling?
Mick and I were having a
No, I knew they're actors.
Yeah, that's the point, Sterling.
off kilter. I
It's so
guess.
funny that Sterling is like the one that's never in on the joke. He's always on the outside going, I don't know what's going on here, guys. But everybody else is like on the same
I love
page.
inside jokes. I would love to be a part of one someday.
Maybe join the conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe join the show. You can be
Stop
part of
reading
them.
books, man. You
Stop
gotta
reading books.
stop
That's
reading
right.
books.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've never seen Yellowstone either.
I know that's your fault. Or
wow.
Good Will Hunting.
Or Good Will Hunting.
What?
Yeah.
What happened to this chair? Remember when Corey was here? He probably knew more movies than you almost.
But see, I know.
And he didn't read books either. So
No, he
I
didn't.
like other movies.
We were
like Big Lebowski is one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite
it's a
movie
good
of all
one.
That's
time.
another one you should have seen.
It's a good one.
So
Yeah.
I have seen that one. I love that one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of movies I've
See,
seen.
and I've never seen it. I read the book. I didn't really read the book, Sterling.
was
okay,
no
this was
book,
this was
Jason.
this was what? There wasn't.
It was called The Big Lebowski.
I actually like that one. KU State get
And we're done.
wins in college basketball last night. The college football playoff rankings, the latest iteration of that came out last night. Matt Quattrero finishes second in Manager of the Year last night. And yesterday, well, go ahead. What was
Hey,
it?
were we talking about that? I mean, I get second. I actually thought he was going to win.
I did too.
And I don't get just the landslide
27
vote for vote.
of 30. He got 2 first-place votes. Quattrero did. A.J. Hinch got 1.
27. And then like 3 dudes or dudettes left Quattrero off their top 3.
Exactly.
Who else are you voting for?
Three different people
possible?
voting.
How
Didn't
did
have him in
Stephen
the
Vogt
top
win
3.
by a landslide?
I
by
have
by
no
a Dolly
idea.
Parton.
I mean,
By a Dixie chick, like that
I get
full
your-
space. Yeah, we're on the same page there. All right,
we did
great.
it.
Yay.
first year manager, I get it. Quattro's a second year manager.
Yeah.
Who had won 56 games a year for 30 game improvement.
Yeah. It's
And made the playoffs. Nobody had ever done that. It made history.
We talked about it. Okay, that's fine if Q doesn't win, which I was okay with Stephen Vogt winning. That was cool. But that means Piccolo has to win Executive of the Year then.
Right. Yeah, he's the one who did it.
It
yeah.
almost needs to be one or the other. It's like, well, if he's not the MVP, that means he's the coach of the year, right? So if Mahomes, for example, is having a down year and the Chiefs get the 1 seed, what does that mean? Andy, if they have no All-Pros, does that mean Andy's the coach of the year then? So it's the same situation here. The issue
Andy's
is
never been coach of the year.
But the issue here is you got second place manager, second place GM. You're probably gonna get second place MVP
and maybe
So-
Cy Young too. It's
so
going to be
maybe
all second places.
But so
Baseball wasn't ready for the Royals this year.
But
okay?
so it almost
was
is
not on the
like they
plans.
ate into each other of who gets the credit. I think is kind of what it came down to.
But you would think that, except for the Milwaukee Brewers, had Matt Arnold, their GM, was GM of the year, and Pat Murphy, their manager, was the NL Manager of the year.
Yeah.
And they went from 92 wins last year all the way up to 93 this year. They got Executive and Manager of the Year.
What's the
by improving by a game. So I don't know. Maybe all of it is just sort of like, I don't know, who knows how the voting goes. I know the GMs vote on the executive of the year.
Do they vote before
the
playoffs?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, the GMs.
So, like, even the Guardians' run to the ALCS wasn't factored in there.
No, it was not. It was not. But yeah, the GMs vote for the executive of the year, so you can't vote for yourself. And I said if I was JJ Piccolo, I would have voted for Chris Getz. No chance he was winning.
Wow,
no chance he got other votes.
17 people voted for Chris Getz doing the same thing. Chris Getz is your winner.
What if JJ lost by 1 vote? And he voted for Matt Arnold, and Matt Arnold voted for somebody else, not JJ Piccolo. You son of a...
Do we have
Never
those numbers?
again.
Because we have the numbers for the manager.
All I saw was that he finished second. I don't know what the voting was.
I don't think they're going to put out
with
the exact
with
votes.
the GMs and things like that.
But yeah, especially GMs.
But I don't. I have no idea. I just know they finished second in both, and the Brewers finished first in GM of the year, and then the National League Manager of the Year. So there is no differentiating between them. It's like no, they together improved 1 game. In the National League from 92 to 93.
Wild to me,
crazy, man. It is, but Bobby Witt will finish second in MVP tonight. Aaron Judge
It's tomorrow, right?
Is that tomorrow?
Cy Young's tonight.
Cy Young's tonight. That's right. Cy Young is tonight. Hopefully Lugo finishes second in Cy Young, so you can have
consistent
second. Yep, in manager, second in executive, second in Cy Young. Tomorrow night, second in MVP. So that's great.
Second in the AL Central.
There we go.
There we go.
Second in the town behind the Chiefs. So, I mean, it's just continuing.
Number 2.
That's
I was a really bad Austin Powers. You know, like how does he say that, Mick? I feel like you'd be good at this.
No, I'm horrible at impressions. That guy is the guy.
Jason, can you do
It's
the
the
number?
one I can't do.
Just be
You
English,
can't do.
English
That's the
accent.
one.
It's the one I can't do.
You can't
anything
do.
else.
Dylan, you
anything
do
else,
it.
just tell me.
Nah.
Anything else,
I
I'll do.
can't.
Any other impression.
Austin Powers. You've tried it?
joking.
Okay, yeah, you can do it. Let's
No,
hear it. Come
I
on.
just don't want
Yeah, baby.
See, that was
Yeah,
Sterling,
just-
though. Yeah, but I'm not some dancing monkey. I'm not just going to play the tambourines when you ask
That's
me to.
exactly what you
I'm not
are,
going to make
man.
you a bicycle clown. I'm not going to do that.
Then what are those
Exactly.
tambourines for?
Because when you don't get my jokes, I just slam them against my head. And put myself out of my misery. 913-912-4810 if you want to text into what we're talking about here.
What are we talking
Which
about
was about
here?
the manager and the
Yeah,
executive
so
of
I
the year.
interrupted you. You were listing all the stuff that happened last night.
Well, and then I was also going to
JUK
say,
State.
Mick, if you were a fella by the name of Marquise, I'm just spitballing here, and you played
pronounced Marquez,
wide receiver in the NFL, and you had a nickname of like Hollywood, and you were playing for the Chiefs, and you were injured right now, and you tweeted out a clock emoji, what would that mean?
Nick and I were talking about it. Nick Jacobs like maybe he bought a clock at Target and it had to return it like it was a broken clock. These clocks in here break
They are
all the
breaking,
time.
yeah. Yeah.
What was that
So
a
that's
couple
what-
Fridays ago we set them and now they're 15 seconds
But I'm
apart.
not saying maybe. I want you to, if you were in his shoes, like I want you to put yourself in. Your name is Marquise. Your nickname's Hollywood. You play in the NFL. You went to Oklahoma, sorry. And now you're with the Chiefs. You got injured on your first play, and then yesterday at 1:29 you tweet out a clock emoji. What does it mean?
He was really excited for the Purdue Marquette game
There it
last
was.
night. That
There
was
it
it.
was.
It's almost time.
I want to see
It's
what
almost
this
time.
non-Zach Edey Purdue Boilermaker game looks like. You know what? If I got Cam Jones going for a triple-double, I'm going to go ahead and play some money on Cam Jones triple-double, which, by the way, was pretty cool that he got the triple-double last night. Did you see how he got it?
No. I saw they were up most of the game.
They were. Shaka kept him in the game, and they talked with like a minute and a half to go. He needed one more assist, and like he's bringing the ball down the floor the possession before, and he's got some guys on the wing. Instead, like he goes up and under and scores, and it's like, yeah, we know you're a stud, man. You need an assist to get a triple-double. So then, somebody calls timeout, it's out of bounds. Shaka talks with him, keeps him in the game, and he's dribbling the ball down the floor, and he's got some backups in. Shaka's got some backups around him, and he throws like, a three-quarter link pass to a guy in the corner who hits the three
Nice.
with like 45 seconds left, and the crowd goes wild, and all the guys on the bench, the starters on the bench are all going crazy and everything, and Cam Jones gets his triple-double. But it wasn't like the fake one where you needed one rebound, so you just threw it off the rim.
Off the rim, yeah.
And then
Off
got
the
it back.
backboard.
Isn't that Gilbert
Somebody had to
Arenas?
make the shot, and it was a three, too.
A lot of them have done that.
I know,
in the
but
NBA.
I think Gilbert Arenas may have been the famous one, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it Gilbert Arenas that did the one where he
feel
just
like
missed it on
he
purpose?
like threw it up and.
I feel
Well,
like
there
it
was
should
one
have
that
to hit the rim.
There was
for
one
you
where there
over
was
your own shot.
There was one where there was a rebound where somebody else was shooting the free throw, and he was on the left block, and that guy shot it to the left off the rim and then he was able to go up and grab the rebound to get it. So it was more legit than that. Like, this guy had to make a three with 45 seconds left with the backups. Somebody had to come through for him to get the triple-double. But so that the clock was about that game.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
That or unfounded deep state theory thrown out there
Yes.
that he could be coming off the IRC.
There it is. Mick Schaefer, if he was in Hollywood Brown's shoes and tweeted out the clock emoji, it would mean everything connected to that shoulder injury. That's the only thing it could mean. No athlete tweets things besides their sports specific situations.
A lot of times they do it because they know they're going to get some interaction and some traction on
People
this.
don't tweet for interactions. That's not what people do.
Oh, okay,
people don't
sorry.
tweet for things to be seen.
I am sure he is champing at the bit, by the way, to get out there. So any word of like, and I'm sure he knows he's not going to come in and play right away, but any word of like, okay, we're updating your status is going to get him going. So I'm sure he is ready to go, and I was happy to see that. I think Chiefs fans happy to see that. So it's just like we play the game of like, oh, what game is that? Chargers game?
What does it mean there, Hollywood? Andy Reid said he's making very good progress. He said, I don't know when, but he's definitely excited to get back. So Andy Reid didn't say if.
Yeah.
I feel like it's gone from when Hollywood Brown is out for the regular season. We'll see if he returns for the
We thought
postseason.
December, right? It was what we heard from the get-go.
December at the earliest, but maybe out for the regular season. We'll see if he returns for the postseason. Early on in January, he could be returning to the postseason. Now it feels like, week 16, 17? Like, are they going to open up his practice window in a couple of weeks? Like before the Chargers game, all of a sudden his practice window opens up after they take care of Carolina, and then Black Friday with the Raiders, and then all of a sudden on Tuesday there's reports of Hollywood Brown's practice window has been 21-day practice window from IR has been opened up. Like, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Well,
based on the clock
I'd be
emoji.
targeting if he's healthy enough that 10-day window where you have 3 games, right?
Yeah.
Bring him back and just we against 2 really good teams in that span.
Cleveland, Houston, Pittsburgh.
Well, because I don't know how much he would play, hypothetically speaking, if he was not back until, let's just say, the playoffs. Let's say that's the first time he can play. How much is he even going to play, if at all? I mean, you're not going to
get some dry runs there, don't you?
Yeah, you kind of want to get a little bit of
Yeah.
your legs underneath you.
Yeah, for sure.
You want the 3-week window, at least use a week. You've missed so long, he might even be one of those guys that uses 2 of the 3 weeks.
Or he's the guy that, like, they rest some players, but Hollywood plays against the Denver Broncos.
But honestly, though,
season.
you might have to just
sure.
to get your legs underneath you and some sort of connection.
The good thing about Hollywood and the difference between Hollywood and, like, Aminihu is Aminihu coming off an ACL, and I don't know what to expect from him. Like, I am tempering my enthusiasm and expectations for Aminihu returning to be the magic elixir and the problem solver with the lack of sacks for this defensive line, because on one hand, it's like, no, Najee Johnson, was struggled because he was coming back from the ACL injury, and Turk Wharton last year, wasn't as good of a year because he didn't have his legs underneath him, as you're talking about with like Hollywood. And this year he's so much better because he had a year removed of actual playing from the ACL injury, to then be like, Aminihu returns in November and it is full go on. He's going to be the magic elixir, this ingredient that's going to make everything go. As opposed to Hollywood Brown, it's not a leg injury. It's a getting tackled injury. Okay, so is he going to be more cautious in getting tackled? I think most wide receivers probably are anyway. So it's not am I worried about cutting here? Or am I worried about a stop and start stutter move where Aminihu, is he worried about having the bend around the outside and putting pressure on that ACL when, he's bending with a tackle pushing down on him to try to, cut down the pocket? Is that something to where he's not fully secure mentally and ready to go where the knee, the ACL is, or they wouldn't let him play?
I think the hard part is you almost need Aminihu more, though, based on how the Chiefs season has progressed, because the Chiefs, anyone want to take a guess where they land in the NFL in sacks?
They're like 29th.
Yeah, tied for 27th because it's 19.
I just looked at it the other day.
27, 28, and 29 are all tied with 19 sacks. Did you have 19 sacks? 19.
In 10 games.
In 10 games.
That's 1.9.
Better than the Falcons, who have 11 games and 10 sacks.
Oh, wow.
Which is a very
That's
impressive.
brutal.
They also have a blowout to the Broncos on the resume as well.
So they got that going for them, which is nice.
Yeah, they didn't get to Bo Nix.
But the Chiefs have traditionally been a pretty sack-happy team for the past few seasons,
Yeah,
where
they
they've
were
gotten
awesome
a
last
ton
year.
of sacks.
Yeah.
Them being down this range is a little disheartening, especially when you have the concerns at CB2, with concerns even at nickel corner to an extent with Shamari Connor, Christian Roland Wallace kind of going back and forth. What alleviates a lot of those secondary concerns is when you're getting pressure and bringing the quarterback down. So I think that's why people have been so enthused or excited about the potential return of Charles, even though I get where you're coming from with the tempered expectations, but it's almost more of a necessity than than even Hollywood.
It's an extra body, and Amenahue can rush from the interior as well,
Yes.
and he's a good player. So a good player that's at 85% of what he was last year, he's immediately thrown right in there, and is one of the better pass rushing defensive ends, defensive players, defensive linemen, because again, where Steve Spagnuolo will use him. I don't know what the plan is for Joshua Uche. Moving forward, he played 5 snaps against the Buffalo Bills. I'm given benefit of the doubt that maybe against the Bills, they wanted more pass rush lane integrity, where we want you to just close the pocket as opposed to a smaller, faster guy that's going to go around the outside, and then it's going to open up a lane for Josh Allen to escape. Maybe they didn't want that. So I do remember Uche being in the game on one particular snap because they ran a stunt. He jabbed with his right foot and then ran underneath. I think it might have been Turk. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because we were talking about, how often they would use him to do those things. If it was just be, go get quarterback, or, hey, we're running this particular thing here. And I do wonder if, okay, we're running a stunt with Joshua Uche, because if they think he's just going to be a sprint speed guy to the outside, maybe that opens up a lane in the middle. Who knows what they were doing? I'll give benefit of the doubt for that. But I'm more optimistic, I would say. I'm tempering enthusiasm for Charles Amenahue. I'm more optimistic for Hollywood Brown, because it's not anything with his legs and trusting, cutting, and running. It's just if he gets tackled, don't get tackled landing on that shoulder. Or, that was unfortunate. It was just
don't get tackled. Just score a touchdown every time you touch it.
Be like
Jason.
Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice was like, I was so fast because I was afraid to get tackled. Like they were running at me from behind. I was going to run
These
because
guys just had more fear. If they weren't so ballsy.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if a healthy fear of injury
Did
good.
Did Ted Ginn Jr. ever get tackled because he would always run remember the punt returner? He would always just catch and go directly out of bounds. He's like, I'm not getting
Tyreek. I mean, Tyreek runs out of bounds a lot.
Business
but
decisions.
He also, plays all year. But Hollywood didn't have a choice on that particular play. It's not like Hollywood lowered his shoulder and took on a defender. It was like, I'm going to show these Chiefs fans how tough I am, and pops the shoulder out like, who was it last year against Mizzou? The quarterback for Mizzou that lowered his shoulder and dislocated it while he was trying to run for a first down.
Not Brady Cook?
No, it was against Mizzou. Okay. I can't remember who we played for. It doesn't matter.
Oh, was that against
Was it Vandy maybe?
Yeah, I know you're talking about now, yeah.
Yeah, but he lowered his shoulder to try to pick up the first down, and then he got up and did a big first down sign, and then was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, that's not where it's supposed to be.
You said the quarterback?
Yeah.
Pavia?
I don't know who it might have been, but as a quarterback, whether it was for Vandy
Wasn't
or
it
somebody.
Tyron Hopper, maybe? I forget who he ran into, but it was someone you're like, oh, that's...
Not the. Oh, my bad. He transferred this year to
Yeah.
Vandy, not
No, it's all good,
years
man.
before.
Yeah, the December's going to be unique.
I'll give you benefit of the doubt. Sterling, shut up.
Gosh,
Love you.
man.
Love you, Sterling. Hey, happy Thanksgiving already to you. Mick, go ahead.
I just think December is going to be unique for the Chiefs, and assuming they're going to be 11-1 going into it, they'll be fighting for that 1 seed, but also reintroducing big pieces to the offense and maybe some decisions there to make of like, okay, I mean, this is a big game. We got to make sure we go win on the road here, but do we want to get Pacheco more carries? You want to? Is this where we put in Hollywood Brown? Is this Amenahue get a start here? And so it'll be an interesting month there because really good teams that maybe you didn't see coming will be there, and that includes the January game with the Broncos.
I think it would be a bigger impact if Hollywood Brown could come back and play left tackle. Then, that would really help out the Chiefs.
That would be a surprise.
Well, he doesn't have the size, but he's got.
He moves well. I mean, with feet.
Does he have the want?
It's the heart.
You got to have the want
it's
to.
The size. It's not the size of the dog. Okay, it's the size of the actual person because they don't play with dogs out on the field. More zone next. 6 o'clock, Hawk Talk with Lance Leipold. Arrowhead Pride with Pete Sweeney and Jack Johnson at 7 o'clock. Bethany Bowman takes over at 8, and then Covell Hudson at 9 o'clock tonight. That's all right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Last night, the college football playoff rankings came out, and this is really surprising because after the rankings came out and Indiana was number 5, it started a debate about if Indiana were to lose to Ohio State. So they're debating that now for the first time, that if Indiana loses to Ohio State, are they going to be in the college football playoff by being an expected 11-1 team with 0 good wins on their resume, including 1 win against a team that currently right now is above 500.
Okay.
And they're 6-5.
And my point was, Miami is going to be an 11-1 team without 0 good wins.
I feel like but Miami is going to win, can win the conference. We're not talking about an at-large Miami. Miami's going to, if
Boise
Miami
State is going to be
is going to win their conference.
They're ahead of
the winner
Big 12
of Notre Dame has one good win.
They've won the independent conference. They've won the independents.
Beat UConn in the conference. That's silly. That's absurd.
They lost to a Northern Illinois team that looked like a high school team last night.
Yeah.
Love some action. Love some action.
Yeah, Miami and SMU, the winner of that's getting in. The loser's out. Like, Miami's
Correct.
not going to get in if they lose to SMU in
the
conference championship.
There are so many permutations left, so many different ways this thing can go, so many possibilities. I don't get ramped up about it. I mean, because you introduce the championship games of these conferences now, and Lane Kiffin talked about it this week. Is like there's a lot of people in the SEC, they don't want to make the championship game because if you lose, you might be punished more than the 3rd and 4th place team in the league, and that makes a lot of sense to me. And so it is dumb. I think that right now Boise State would be a 4 seed, but I don't think that's going to finish that way.
Yeah.
So it feels like, I mean, they have a good loss on the resume, and that's about it.
Yeah.
That people are
the 3-point loss to Oregon, and then whoever wins the Big 12, if it's Colorado, they would have one. They would beat Kansas, but then they would also have a BYU.
If Colorado
or
or
an Arizona
BYU
State.
or an Arizona State win out, I have confidence that they'll be ahead of Boise State, even with one more loss
for sure.
I was going to say, do you think also the fact that nobody knows the outcome of a 12 versus 5 beatdown is why people are kind of just a little more rabid this season over that last spot versus maybe after this first year when, let's say, whatever team gets the 12 seed gets a 50 burger put on them by the 5 seed?
There will be debate over 2, 3, 4 teams maybe that don't make the playoff. Right? And there'll be great arguments on both sides, and it'll be, really good. Maybe it's the 5th best team out of the SEC or the 2nd out of the Big 12, and really good arguments. But at least once it's over and done with, because we have it with the field of 68 in basketball every year, same deal. But at the end of the day, those teams probably weren't going to win it all. Right. And those teams had plenty of opportunities to make sure they got in the playoffs. And so once for a day we debate about it, we can go and have 12 teams. And it is finally fair, and there's representation, and let's go play lots of games and see what happens.
Yeah, the 12-5 right now, if the season ended today, which would be a surprise, if it ended today.
I feel like that would be the talking point.
It's probably right. Yeah, and Indiana would be like, whoa, we're undefeated. Like,
we had a schedule.
Good news. You're in. You're undefeated. You haven't lost a game yet. BYU would go to Ohio State. BYU, the 12 seed, would head to the Horseshoe. And that probably is not a game you would watch past the middle of the second quarter.
I would guess not. But I think after this year, they'll maybe it'll take a couple of years. They'll tweak the rules of, okay, at the top 4, the top 4 conference championship winners, no matter what the conference is, are going to get the seeds. And then maybe they'll cap it once
to like 2.
SEC gets 6 in or this year or whatever.
I mean, bleep, they might. I mean, if A&M beats Texas,
I think they'll tweak it within that, and maybe they'll get to 16, which I've always thought was the best number. But I'd take a step back, big picture. It's 12 now. There's plenty of room to get all the deserving teams and all the teams that are quote unquote the best. Right, because we're still having those arguments and all that. Get them all in.
Like if Indiana gets their doors blown off by Ohio State and A&M beats Texas, I mean, you might be talking about with the SEC, like Bama, Texas, Texas A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, all making the college football
The
playoff.
SEC will bitch they didn't get a 13th team in when they fill the entire field of 12.
Well, yeah, Mizzou only has 3 losses. Why
That's
aren't
right.
they?
Yeah, come on.
Why would they?
Vanderbilt's been a plucky up-and-coming
That's right.
team.
Yes, they're a scrappy little team. Tennessee is the 11th ranked team and not in the playoffs because of the conference winners behind them in Boise State and BYU jumping into the top 12. So you can be in the top 12 ranking and not make the college football playoff right now. So, but yeah, if Indiana loses a game, then we really get into, okay, what's the resume? Because right now it's like they're undefeated, and what's the resume? Who they playing?
Indiana, just thank your lucky stars you're having the season this year and not any of the previous years. Because you could have easily been the Florida State of last year and other teams where
the Tulane or whatever. It wasn't Tulane also.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
year.
Indiana's at least a Big Ten school, like a major school that could easily go 12-1 or undefeated, and everybody's gonna first of all look at Indiana like that's the wrong helmet sticker. I don't know if I can trust you. But then also look at the schedule and all that stuff, which in large part you can't control when it comes to these mega conferences. Now, I mean, you're going to play 8. If you're in the SEC, you're going to play 8 of the 15 possible opponents. You could play a monster schedule one year and be great and still get hung with 3 or 4 losses, and then be average another year, play a nothing schedule, and you get 1 or 2.
Yeah, and in Indiana's defense, they did not create the Big Ten schedule where Michigan's down this year, Michigan State's down this year, Nebraska did not rally off the Colorado win. Maryland is 1-6 in conference. UCLA's 3-5. Washington's the best team they've played record-wise, and they're 4-4 in the Big Ten and 6-5 overall. What they had somewhat control over, and I don't blame Kurt Signetti for doing this, they had control over the non-conference. But if I've got a new team and I'm coming into Indiana and I've got a bunch of new players, I'm not loading up my non-conference like Texas played Michigan and Colorado State, a Mountain West team. Indiana's 3 non-conference teams were FIU, that's 3-7 right now, Charlotte, that's 3-7 right now, and Western Illinois, that in the FCS is 3-8 right now.
Do you know Western Illinois' mascot?
Yeah, Leathernecks.
Yeah, isn't that a great
Do
mascot?
you know what town they're in?
Western Illinois, the west side of Illinois.
Macomb, Illinois. I've been there many times.
I was going to say,
you know who played there?
Colin
Saunders.
Kalen.
Good job.
But yeah,
it's a military term, Army-based term from back in World War I or II, I believe 1.
Western Illinois is? Western? Is it the Western or the Illinois part?
The Leatherneck part.
Oh, my bad.
I thought it was a badass name, the Leathernecks. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a great name.
Yep, I like the unique ones.
So, I mean, do you like Texas? Do you give them benefit of the doubt because they played Michigan, even though Michigan is down, and Indiana played Michigan in conference? Or do you give Texas benefit of the doubt because, well, you played Colorado State, and they're 7-3 in the Mountain West, but like,
The answer is yes, they do.
Yeah,
I mean, it's basically
because
and
FIU
you get dinged for a really good team that's a bad year. That you
right.
play.
I mean, because Texas is ranked ahead of Indiana, and Texas already has 1 loss. Penn State has 1 loss and is ranked ahead of Indiana right now.
I wonder too over time if this will change the championship games, or at least the way the teams, the conferences will determine a champion. To where like I could see it so many times, especially in the Big Ten or SEC. They'll get in the regular season and say, okay, we're in now. We don't necessarily want this 13th data point. It's not going to help us that much if we win, and it could really hurt us if we lose.
Let's hear Lane Kiffin on that. He weighed in on this yesterday about, by the way, his team is probably not more than likely. It's a very, very slim chance of them playing in the college football or the SEC championship. So he would benefit by having 2 losses if he were to get into the college football playoff by not having to have that 13th data point and losing a 3rd game. But here's Lane Kiffin on that aspect of making or not making your conference championship game and costing you a college football playoff spot.
I've talked to other coaches, so I'll just kind of give you the feeling from some other coaches that they don't want to be in it. You know, the reward to get a bye versus the risk to get knocked out completely, that's a really big risk just to get a bye. So I think it's ended up being a very unique situation of all postseason sports, the way that system's set up there, and how you could go to that and get knocked out, and if you don't go, you're in.
Alabama's number 7 in the nation right now. They are the heavy odds-on favorite to play in the SEC championship game against the winner of Texas and Texas A&M because of the tiebreakers, the way it works heavily in Alabama's favor. If Alabama did not play in the conference championship game, they would be in the college football playoff.
I think this argument is for more Alabama and less for an Ole Miss to
Yeah.
where, like, I think Ole Miss would want to get there because, I mean, like we said, there's a lot of different things that can happen. But if season ended today, they'd be on the outside looking in, and they would need that other win to jump up in the 12. But I think you're right. I think Alabama is the team people are talking about for that.
Yeah.
What are your opinions? Because we've talked about this. Should making it and losing.
I don't think you should be penalized for playing a 13th game against one of the best teams in the country and one of the best teams in your conference.
So you think it can only help, not
Yes.
hurt? So you should be able to add.
It should only help.
It should only help.
But I think, I mean, we're just so used to like, okay, they lost. We got to take them down a couple notches here, and that's and really look. There's gonna. It's not. I mean, there's gonna be like 3 or 4 or 5 teams right there, right below you, waiting in the wings with great resumes.
Yeah.
And that one little mark might be like, okay, you know what? This Alabama's got 3 losses now. We've got this 1 loss Big 12 team. Wouldn't be that way this year. That wouldn't be a champion. Why not put them over it? I know they have, Georgia, Alabama's played a tougher schedule. They got that 13th data point, but this team's only won 1 game. Yeah. It should not ding you, but it will. It does.
I think if the playoff selection committee, if their view was, hey, it can help you, but you're in the playoffs by playing in that game. So if you lose it, then don't get mad at us for judging you and not putting you in the playoffs when you lost a playoff game. You lost to a team that was in the playoffs, and that was at a neutral site. So we're not putting you in because you had a chance to be in the playoffs, so technically a playoff game. If they came out and said that, whereas my issue is going to be, I think they'll 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other on some of these.
Yeah.
You know, like Ole Miss is number 9 and Georgia's number 10 because Ole Miss beat Georgia. But Georgia beat Texas, Tennessee, and Clemson, and their losses are to Alabama and Ole Miss. And Ole Miss beat Georgia and South Carolina, but they lost at home to Kentucky that's 1-6. So it's like, okay, well, Ole Miss overcomes that huge resume gap because they won. Except for SMU and BYU, where SMU and BYU have almost the same resumes, only BYU beat SMU, but
and
they're
is now behind
them.
them.
Yes. So explain that to me. That's where I'm getting into like, well, this conference championship game did this, and this conference championship game didn't do this, and it.
Well, I'm at least, again, I'll go back to at least glad that we'll be talking about teams that finished 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, as it is the case of the SEC in their conference, and not conference champions. We're not going to ignore an ACC champ or a Big 12 champ that won its conference and could only play its own. It's not like you can go and, I mean, you have just a few, you have 3 non-con games, unless you're in the SEC. That's it. And you're playing your own, and we really don't know. So at least those champions of those major conferences are going to be in and have a shot.
Sorry, 4 of the 5 Power 5 conferences you can play for a championship.
I was like, do 16. Whether I think there's 10.
12
conferences now.
Oh, I thought you meant
there's 10 FBS conferences. Every winner goes, and then you have 6. At larges or wild cards, and they just go and play.
All right. Mick Schaefer's got all the answers. I like that. You know what? 32 team. 68 teams.
All those lower levels, D2 and FCS, have like 24, 28 teams.
However many teams it takes to get Mizzou in. That's my number.
I like it.
Where's our next?
Maybe that was a ghost.
I even shut the door on him, and
I know.
he
He
did not
walked through
take.
it. He walked through it like a ghost.
But it's like Casper. He is friendly. I'll give him that.
He is, yeah, he's a
it's
friendly
Casper.
ghost.
I just love that he was like walking around the halls like he didn't know where he was going and
Yeah.
was like looking at his phone like he was watching his map or whatever
Yeah.
while he was walking.
There's like 2 hallways here,
And
Nate. How do you not know
it's
where
like
you're
you
going?
graduated last year. Everything's the same.
Yeah,
you know where to
you
go.
worked here for like 20 years.
Hey, man, everything's different.
Where's the library?
Here last year.
Nate, this is a radio station. I went the wrong way on my way home. Yeah, so there's that Mick. Hey, man, it was so good to see you.
It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes when I'm here, it's
Yeah.
great.
It'll be better next week. I'm gone next week.
Ah, thank goodness. We go every
have
day? Every day?
Fun.